All sports, all the time.
There's heroes and there's legends. Heroes get remembered. Legends never die.
This is the Spoken Podcast.
Hold your ears, folks. It's showtime.
I'm your host, Lance Twidwell.
Man, that kid, he can ball, man. He can ball.
Touchdown, Kansas City!
Patrick freaking Mahomes, baby!
Let's talk some sports, because that's what we're here to do.
You are tuned in to The Spoken.
This is the Spoken Podcast. I am your host, Lance Twidwell, here inside the Spoken Studios with my guys, Trevor Twidwell.
What's good?
And the return of one, Eddie Ortiz.
Yo.
Mr. Yo is back in the house. We're so excited to have him. We're so excited to have you guys in here for episode 172 of the Spoken Podcast. Man, whether you were live streaming, YouTubing, or podcasting, thank you so much for being with us today, because we have, believe it or not, despite the fact that this is a rather dead time of the year in the sports world, we still have plenty to talk about. So I hope you guys are strapped in, because no matter how long the show lasts, we're discussing that before the show about, like, man, what is there really to discuss? We get creative around here, man, and I hope you guys are ready, because we have plenty to discuss, and I hope that you guys are going to enjoy this time. I hope you guys are doing well, that everyone's healthy out there and living their life to the best. We are here to talk sports, so get your mind off all the crazy shit that's going on in the world. Trust me when I say I have my opinions on those things, but we're here to take a break from all that and discuss some of the things that we're big fans of, which, again, is the sports world, sports figures, sports icons, the NFL season that's about a month away from really gearing up at training camp. I know it's a month away, but I know that that's going to fly by. At least I hope that that's what's going to be the case. In the meantime, catch up with your TV shows that you've been meaning to catch up with, because this is the time of year to do that, because once football season kicks off, you know we're going to be in front of our TVs watching live sports 2 to 3 nights a week for the next 5 or 6 months. I hope you guys are excited as I am. I know I'm excited. I want to start with something. First of all, I'm glad we got our guy Eddie Ortiz back in the show. It feels like forever ago since we had him. We had a week off 2 weeks ago, and then Eddie was out of town with his family in Chicago. Eddie, real quick before I kick the show off with my first topic of the day, my Lance rants, if you will, give the people a little synopsis of how Chicago was, because I was shocked by this, Eddie. I thought Chicago, everyone always tells me like how great of a city Chicago is. Be real with us, and we may have some Chicago viewers here.
Cover your ears.
Yeah, cover your ears, everybody, Chicagoans. Eddie's got some takes.
I just wasn't a big fan of it. This is my first time going to Chicago. I don't know what I was expecting, but I was not expecting what I saw, I guess. It was way too crowded for the amount of people that are there. It is a big city, very big. Downtown, gorgeous. The beaches, the Lake Michigan, all that's gorgeous. It's just anything outside of Chicago was not the greatest. It's just not what I was expecting. I still had a good time with my family. We watched the soccer game. That's one of the reasons we went out there. For me and my dad, both me and my dad's teams were playing against each other, so that was kind of cool to go experience. Even though my team lost and my dad rubbed it in my face, it was still such a great time.
What was the food like? Was the food good?
The food was delicious, and we mostly tried Mexican food out in Chicago because obviously
there's a pretty big Mexican culture out there.
It's a very, very big, I would say, Hispanic community out there.
Yeah.
So delicious food. We went to 4 different Mexican restaurants. I can't remember what the other one was, but it was amazing food. Yeah, the people were amazing. But it's just the roads, the traffic. If you're not born and raised in Chicago, I wouldn't recommend driving in Chicago because people there are crazy. It's just too much.
They're so crazy, you had to add an extra syllable. Crazy.
Crazy, yeah. It's just, I wasn't ready for it.
Stress you out.
Yes, I was super stressed because I was driving my car. So it's kind of if it was a rental car, I think I wouldn't give a fuck,
Yeah.
But it was my car, so I was a little more stressed. It's just crazy, too crowded.
Yeah.
Hopefully it gets bigger and not population wise, but
I was gonna say it can't get that much bigger with population.
There's already almost 10 million people out there.
Well, we're glad to have you back here in Kansas City,
you.
which I know that is your preference over Chicago. We're really happy to have you back. We had a lot. We got to expand on the announcement, obviously, that came down the pipeline last week about the Kansas City getting the World Cup. We're going to talk about that in a little bit with the Eddie Hour, which we're excited to have back. I definitely want to get your thoughts on. I just thought it was the worst timing imaginable that you're not here the week that announcement goes down, and you're not here to gloat about your Golden State Warriors winning the title, which you were the only one of us three that picked them over the Celtics. So congratulations to you on that as well. Trevor and I definitely held some L's on that. We gave you credit for that. We also talked a lot of shit because you weren't here to defend yourself, and it's a lot more fun to do it when you're not. But I want to start with something today that I thought was a necessary conversation to be had. I've been speaking on it a lot over the last few days in regards on Twitter and on Facebook, in regards to Rob Gronkowski announcing his retirement for a second time. We can discuss whether we think it's legitimate or not. We can discuss whether we think it's going to last or stick or not, or if he just wants to make this announcement and then middle way of the season or right before the season he decides to come back. We've seen him do things similar to this before. There's context to it that's a little bit different, and I don't think he would make this announcement this just to come back again the same year. It doesn't really make a lot of sense for him to do so. I do want to pay my respects to what Gronkowski is in this league, because I think a lot of times when we draw comparisons between players at an all-time level or even just in a current era level, it can come off as us discrediting what that player is if we think someone's better than that person. So I want to give some credit here to what Rob Gronkowski did in his 11-year career, if in fact it is over. The man had almost 100 touchdowns in his career. Yeah. He had an incredible playoff career. He was a pinnacle piece, an asset to 4 Super Bowl championships with Tom Brady. 3 of them with the Patriots, 1 with the Bucs. This man had an all-time great career, and in my opinion, is the 3rd greatest tight end to ever live. I know a lot of people put him at the top, but I'm going to explain in a minute why I believe that he isn't at the top. But I do, before I say any of those things, want to pay my respects to what Rob Gronkowski is. He's an incredible personality, super lovable guy. He's a big old teddy bear, and he's been absolutely productive throughout his career, despite the fact that he's dealt with probably 150 different injuries. Yeah. And he's an absolute juggernaut. He's of a human. He's just a monster. He's a wall. Like I tell our guy Jason Dunn, when it comes to the Chiefs and their tight ends and wide receivers and how big they are, it's like skyscrapers with feet and cleats. Like, that's what Rob Gronkowski was, and I think he helped revolutionize the tight end position even further from guys like Tony Gonzalez and Shannon Sharp and Antonio Gates and the guys that predated him. I think that he took it to another level and played at a really high level he had some good peak years. But see, I'm somebody that is so big on longevity. And not just longevity, where you just play a long career. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about having a long career where you are healthy and you produce at a high level on a consistent level. And although I love what Gronkowski did in his career, and I think he's an awesome football player and is a surefire, no questions asked, first ballot Hall of Famer, there is a tight end in his own era that is better than him, and it is Travis Kelce. And it's so wild to me that despite the fact that I'm about to break down these numbers in just a second, I'm going to get your guys' thoughts and opinions on this as well, in this direct comparison. It's so wild to me that the numbers are obviously on Travis Kelce's side as an individual, yet it doesn't look like that, or it's not a consensus agreement. It doesn't even have to be consensus. Mm-hmm. It's so weird how it's so assumed that Gronk is just better than Travis Kelce, or he's the greatest tight end ever, when there's context to the numbers that, to me, separate them pretty definitively. And it comes down to longevity. Longevity, to me, is one of the most important assets to ranking individual players, because if you're available and you're able to play longer and at a higher level more times than not, to me, that makes you the better player. I think Gronkowski had more of a peak in 2011. That may be the greatest season that individual tight ends ever had.
The apex of tight end success.
But 6-7 years now of Travis Kelce playing the way he has, not to mention the fact he has not missed a game due to injury.
Yeah.
And since his rookie season in 2013 tells me this guy, to me, is the premier asset. But I'm going to play you guys a clip from this week's show. You guys know I'm a big follower of Colin Cowherd. I disagree with a lot of things he says, but I do appreciate the way he delivers his thoughts. He has well-thought-out opinions, so I always give him the benefit of the doubt, and I hear him out. But this is something, once again, that I completely disagree with, and I want you guys to hear his words himself. This is him and Joy Taylor, his co-host, talking about Rob Gronkowski, talking about the hierarchy of all-time tight ends. I want you guys to hear this.
Kellen Winslow, Shannon Sharp, Rob Gronkowski, Tony Gonzalez. I could be missing somebody. They feel like the big four.
So you can hear that and you go, oh, okay, well, those are Mount Rushmore of names that have played in the tight ends. I mean, Kellen Winslow, one of the first great tight ends. He was a guy that produced way ahead of his time. He was playing in an era that they didn't utilize tight ends like that. Tight ends were usually like a glorified extension of the run blocking scheme or the offensive line to block for pass pro. They weren't utilized in the pass game nearly as much, and Kellen Winslow was one of the first guys to do so. Mm-hmm. But Kellen Winslow, let's be honest here, didn't play at the level that even Gronkowski, Tony Gonzalez, Jason Witten, Antonio Gates, and those guys that of the last 25 years played. He didn't come close to that. And I think that that's unfair to put him in that category. But see, it's funny how he says, I feel like I'm missing somebody. I could be missing somebody. Maybe it's the tight end that has more than 3 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. He's the only one to ever do that and is on a 6-season streak of at least 1,000 yards. That's doubling the record that he set himself. And I wanted to bridge the comparison here between Gronkowski directly, because that's the player we're focusing on here, and Travis Kelce since 2014, which is 8 seasons of football, which is the majority of both of their careers. Gronkowski playing 11 years. This is Travis Kelce's 8th season was last season. Since 2014, with playoffs included, Rob Gronkowski had 472 receptions for 7,097 yards and 62 touchdowns. That's incredible production. Travis Kelce in that exact same span put 810 receptions up for 10,297 yards and 69 nice touchdowns. So in every single way imaginable, as an individual player, Travis Kelce outperformed Gronkowski. The guy that had Tom Brady his entire career. Literally his entire career. One of the greatest quarterbacks to ever live had him as his quarterback. And Travis Kelce, for the majority of his career, still had Alex Smith. A guy that was always good, middle tier type of quarterback, but was never anywhere close to what Tom Brady has ever been. And yet, Travis Kelce has put up the numbers that far surpass what Gronkowski has done in his entire 8 of his 11 seasons. It's almost as if no one realizes, or maybe not even cares, that Travis Kelce leads literally every single receiving player in the NFL in receiving yards since 2016. That is 6 seasons of football. And this tight end leads everybody. Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp, DeAndre Hopkins. He leads them all. And the stat that makes these guys Hall of Famers. Travis Kelce is a Super Bowl winning 6-time All-Pro, which, by the way, is the same amount that Tony G had through his first 8 seasons, and is 2 more than Gronk had through his first 8 seasons. He's a 7-time Pro Bowler, has the most receptions in playoff history by a tight end despite playing in 7 fewer playoff games than Gronk, and only trails Jerry Rice and Julian Edelman for all-time playoff receptions. He owns the record for most yards in a single season by a tight end. He has the most receiving yards by a tight end through the first 10 seasons with 9,006, and he only has played 8 seasons. That's 4 fewer games than Gronk and 31 fewer than Gonzalez through 10 seasons. Why Travis Kelce doesn't get the praise that guys like Gronk and Tony Gonzalez and Shannon Sharp and these other tight ends before him or during his era, why he doesn't get that same praise, I don't understand it. I've been trying to theorize it because, again, we talk about, well, he's got to be a Super Bowl winner. Check. He's played in multiple. Well, he's got to have a bunch of All-Pros. Check. Has just as many as Tony G had through his first 8 seasons. And we can't even sit here and count the 2013 season because he didn't play. So I want to hear you guys. I want to hear if you guys want to chime in on this one, because I'm confused. Maybe I have my Chiefs blinders on. But I don't think that's the case, because I'm looking at the numbers here, and if it was switched and Gronk had the numbers that Travis has, I would have to sit here and say, Gronk's just better. I love Travis Kelce. I prefer his style, but the numbers show to me that Gronk's the better player. But that's not the case. So if people think Gronk's the better player, explain to me why Travis Kelce's been a better player in the biggest games in fewer games. 7 fewer playoff games, and he's put up better numbers than Gronk. I think he trails Gronk by like 200 yards in 7 fewer playoff games. That's wild. And here's the other thing. Again, the point of the emphasis is, we all know receivers and tight ends rely on what? Quarterback play, correct? You got to have a quarterback and get the job done to you, right? One guy had arguably the greatest quarterback to ever live his entire 11-year career, and one guy had Alex Smith for 5 seasons. And still put up numbers better.
And their target share has got to be fairly similar, too, because Gronk was always one of the top targets for Tom Brady every single season. He always led the team in receiving touchdowns. That's how it went, especially in the postseason. But I think when it comes to Colin Cowherd's list there, I think he was making a thing to just talk about retired tight ends, not current players. I think that's the only reason he left Travis Kelce. When he said, I think I might be missing someone, he could have been referring to like Witten, another guy who's retired, who should definitely be on that list as well. If you want to talk about, granted, he was never a champion, but his numbers are up there with all the best of them. And his consistency and longevity, he embodied that. So I think that's the main reason why he didn't mention Travis Kelce, because he's a current active player. I think he very well is aware that Travis Kelce is by far the most skilled tight end we've ever had in this league, and the numbers are unmatched. I think he's well aware of that. I don't think he's that dumb to just blatantly leave Travis Kelce off that list.
All of them are Hall of Famers, I think.
Yeah, they are.
The ones he listed. So I think he was just putting, if those Hall of Famers there, and saying pretty much Gronkowski's a Hall of Famer.
Right. I mean, you know my answer to the who's better between Gronk and Kelce. Kelce is the entire package. Kelce is an elite wide receiver one playing the tight end position, and he's great at throwing blocks, and he can do everything. And his IQ is wild. Right, we've seen it in that clip where this past postseason where he was like, "Hey, 10," and he guided Tyreek to that seam play and all that. That was just stuff like that. It's like he's like a coach player. Yeah. You know what I mean? So that the value he brings doing that, you don't see Gronk doing that stuff. Gronk's just like, I'll get it. Just throw the ball up there. I get it. You know what I mean? So it's like they're two totally different guys. And they bring different. Not knocking Gronk. I'm a big Gronk fan. I love the tight end position, so I respect the greats. So Tony Gonzalez has a special place in my heart, so I actually would put Tony Gonzalez over him as well. And I do agree with you. I would probably he would probably fall in the 3 spot for me all time. Once Travis Kelce is done, I think Travis Kelce has solidified himself as the most productive, not only productive, but the greatest talent as of right now. And I will say there are guys coming. There are Kyle Pitts. What's the name from the Raiders? There are guys.
Mark Andrews is really good. George Kittle's awesome.
Yes. So I mean,
Darren Waller's amazing.
And not only just the talent of those individuals, but the game is starting to evolve around versatile tight ends. That's becoming more and more of a thing. And Travis Kelce has embodied that new era of tight ends and taking it a step further and having multiple streaks of 1,000-yard seasons and 10-plus touchdowns, and his numbers in the postseason are unmatched. I mean, outside of a couple hundred yards and several less games than Gronk. I think he's going to sit at the top of the list when it's all said and done. But there are guys coming. There are guys that are having numbers that are going to be wild in these next coming couple decades at the tight end position, because they're basically becoming an extension of the wide receiver now, which I love. It makes the game great and much harder to defend. But yeah, I mean, you know me, where I sit with my guy Kelce. That's my guy. So I'm not reading too much into the Colin Cowherd thing. He is a shock jock guy a lot of times, so I felt like that was maybe an intentional thing to leave Kelce off, but I feel it was pretty obvious that he was just talking about retired guys that are in the Hall of Fame, that he's just going to list, like you said, like a Mount Rushmore type of deal. That's definitely what it felt like, and I think that's what it was. Kelce is going to sit at the top of that list, and I think it's going to be, if you're one of those people that denies Kelce, because he's got another solid 2, 3, maybe 4 seasons left in the NFL, depending on how he takes care of himself and how if any kind of nagging injuries become a part of his game. It is what it is. It's a part of the game, but he is getting older. But I still think he's got a lot of game left in him, and I think by the time it's going to be kind of one of those things you can't really avoid anymore, naming him the greatest to play that position, especially if he gets another chip. But I mean, the dude's done it all. His numbers and his success, everything is there. Didn't always have, like you said, a Hall of Fame quarterback throwing him the football. I mean, it is what it is. I don't. If anybody wants to call Gronk the greatest of all time right now, sure, that's fine. But I think we all know Kelce when it comes to the full package, and as far as skill set goes, IQ, yak, what he can do with the ball in his hands after the catch. He's not a statue with the ball in his hands. He's not just a red zone threat. He's a guy that you can throw a screen pass to from the opposite 40 and take it to the crib. Not many tight ends, if ever, have ever been able to do that kind of stuff, and more than one time, multiple times. So, and in the biggest games, So Kelsey he's built different, man, and he would be atop of the list. But once he retires, I think it's going to be undeniable.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are reading in between the lines of what Colin Cowherd said when there's nothing to read. In my mind, I think he was, like Trevor said, I think he was just putting him in that, or how do you say it, echelon of tight ends.
Upper echelon,
the Mount Rushmore, yeah.
The Mount Rushmore of tight ends who are in the Hall of Fame, who are retired, because obviously we all know that Gronkowski is going to be a Hall of Famer. There is no doubt about that. Between the retired players and Gronkowski, you can definitely argue that, I'd say between retired Hall of Famer tight ends, Gronk is potentially the best out of all of them. It is arguably arguable. Exactly. So I don't feel like it was any shot or disrespect to Travis Kelce, as he is still a current active player. He's still playing. He's still producing. Obviously, we can't deny Travis Kelce's talent.
Right.
It's something we haven't seen ever. He's helped transform the tight end position to what it was to what it is now, which is becoming a more of a wide receiver position. Like with the new tight ends who are coming in, are becoming more passing tight ends. There's not a lot of you need to be a good blocker to be a tight end anymore. I think we're slowly going away from that. Obviously, it's a plus if the tight end can block and stuff like that. But I think the NFL, the way it's going right now, it's shifting somewhat away from those kinds of tight ends. I think they're relying more on strong, quick little tight end. So, man, there's just no question as to who is the greatest tight end of all time. To me, in my opinion, I think Travis Kelce, he has the numbers. He obviously has the success. He's won a championship. He's helped carry this team at its lowest points. He obviously helped elevate Alex Smith's career in some ways, kind of like what Tyreek Hill did as well. So the way Travis Kelce plays the game, it's so amazing to watch. And as he gets older, and as time progresses, enjoy it while you can, because we don't know how much Travis Kelce we're gonna get. Yeah. And I feel like Travis Kelce can be one of those players where if he gets another championship or something like that, it's like, okay, I've had 8-9 seasons of nothing but success in the NFL. I think it might be time, either find a new adventure or see if he can stick it around and keep going. But yeah, enjoy while you can, man, because you never know when Travis Kelce is going to call it a career. But between Travis Kelce and Gronk, I'm picking Travis Kelce all day. Sorry. I'm picking Travis Kelce all day. No disrespect to Gronk. It's just, in my opinion, Travis Kelce is just better.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the age, or what he can do, how long he can sustain this type of success, and what he's going to do afterwards, because I think it's a foregone conclusion that he's going to join a network the day he retires and become either an actual in-game analyst for games, kind of breaking down the Sunday Night Football, whatever the case he might do. I think more realistically, he's going to join like NFL on Fox, where he becomes like a replacement for like a Terry Bradshaw, because Bradshaw's probably only got a couple years left at most. He's in his 70s. Jimmy Johnson, guys like that are getting older. I think guys like Travis Kelce with those great personalities, but also they're articulate. They can break things down because he's a former quarterback. I think he can be that kind of guy that handles that
him and his brother both got.
Imagine him like Michael Strahan together. That'd be amazing.
My thing is, I don't think he'll probably join a big network. I think he'll do kind of like what Pat McAfee's kind of doing.
Oh, okay.
I think he'll create his create his own show. Create his own show. Create everything. You know what I mean?
The money always talks though. If like Amazon Prime was to be like, hey, bro, we'll pay you $25 million a year to come and do this, I think he's going to sign on. But
obviously,
but to your point, there's going to be options.
Because I mean, he has that charisma. He has that ambition
and accomplishments. Like you broke down. Yeah.
So he knows the game. He knows how to. Obviously, we saw against the Buffalo Bills that play with Tyreek Hill, kind of like tell him, hey, they're leaving the middle open, just shoot up.
I would like to see him and Jason Kelsey both have like a podcast kind of set.
Dude, that would be
Brothers Kelsey, the Brothers Kelsey.
The Kelseys or something.
That would be great.
Dude.
That would be great.
Those guys are great.
But staying in the current time though, because I'm going to enjoy the hell out of that. But I'm enjoying what Travis is doing for the Chiefs right now, and I'm going to be real with you guys. Maybe I'm being a little optimistic here, but based upon his health availability and his work ethic, I think that Travis Kelce's got at least 3 or 4 more great seasons left in him. And I know he's not young. He will be 33 in October. So he's not a young tight end anymore. But the way the game is played and the fact that we've seen other tight ends throughout history have long careers into their late 30s, like other greats, like Tony Gonzalez, like Antonio Gates, like Jason Witten, like Shannon Sharp. Those guys all played past 35, 36 years old at a high level, I might add.
Yeah.
So to me, I'm going to say it like this: the only tight end I can compare Travis Kelce to is Tony Gonzalez. Yeah. I think they are the apex tight ends in NFL history. I think they are by far the 2 best, and then everybody else is just everybody else.
Shannon Sharp was definitely.
Shannon Sharp was good.
Yeah.
He was really, really good. He had a long career.
Freak athlete.
But I just think when you look at production, the health and availability, those 2 guys separate themselves from the rest, outside of maybe Jason Witten, who played like every game except I think 1 in his entire career.
Yeah.
Tony Gonzalez played 17 seasons in the league and missed 2 games.
Yeah.
That's freaking
Iron
wild.
Man, yep.
And speaking of Tony, when he left the Chiefs in his year 32, the season of his 32-year-old age, he averaged from that point on until he retired at 37 years old. He had a 6-year window. He averaged 84 receptions, 874 yards, and 8 touchdowns. That is phenomenal. And the biggest key to that was Tony Gonzalez had 2 things going for him. He had a prime Matt Ryan, to me, is a no questions asked Hall of Fame quarterback in this league. This dude has put up insane numbers, and Matt Ryan was in his prime at this time, right?
Ice.
And the fact that Tony Gonzalez, once again, like I said about Travis, was insanely healthy. He didn't miss a single game for the final 6 seasons of his career in his mid to late 30s. So Travis Kelce has that same thing going for him as he ages, as he progresses in his career, and the fact that even to the point of Matt Ryan being in his prime and was one of the 5 to 10 best quarterbacks back then, Travis Kelce has Patrick Mahomes in his prime. And a lot like what we talk about with Andy Reid about how he's going to stick around a lot longer than he probably would outside of having Patrick Mahomes because he has Patrick Mahomes. That that gives him that incentive to work harder and stay around longer because of the success that can and will inevitably follow you with sticking with Patrick Mahomes. I think that's the same testament and principle with Travis Kelce. I think if Travis Kelce had more Alex Smith type quarterbacks, he'd probably cut it short at 34 or 35. He'd probably be like, you know what? I've put up Hall of Fame numbers. I've had my accomplishments. I'm going to go and work in TV and not get banged around for 16, 17 weeks a year. You know what I mean? I think that's what would happen. But because of the fact he has Patrick Mahomes, who's one of his best friends, one of his closest allies, and has put up historic numbers with Patrick Mahomes, and knowing that they have this still rolling, and Patrick Mahomes is only 26 years old, with Andy Reid still on board, I have a hard time believing that Travis Kelce retires any time earlier than 36, 37 years old, especially when he can still do it healthy. Yeah. And I don't see how he doesn't replicate these types of numbers. In fact, I think Travis Kelce can outdo these numbers that Tony Gonzalez put up in his advanced age, which were absurd. I mean, those numbers, if Tony Gonzalez just averaged those from age 21 to 30, he makes the Hall of Fame. Those are insane numbers at any age you do,
well,
let alone
especially
at that
when he's
time.
not sharing, regardless of what Tyreek may think, now that he's not sharing the ball with a target monster that is Tyreek, regardless of what we want to talk about the amount of volume that Tyreek got when he was here, he definitely got it, a lot of it. So now having that guy out of the way and the ball is going to be spread around a little bit more with different numbers on the field, but Travis Kelce is going to be the focal point of this offense most likely this season. I mean, not that he hasn't been, but it's been pretty close between him and Tyreek. But I mean, that much more emphasis on him this season and the coming seasons. He's going to be relied upon that much more because he is the guy that's been here. So I think this season could be maybe his biggest season yet. He might get the most work of any season leading up to this point. So I'm right there with you, man. I think the longevity and his success leading into this could be the biggest yet.
Yeah, and I want to. I do want to add, if anybody has thoughts and opinions on that, definitely hit us up and hit us up on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel because we'd love to hear from you guys on there as well. We're trying to grow our channel a little bit more to monetize all this and get this thing rolling. So if you guys have thoughts, and we know you do, we see the traffic. opinions are, and we'd love to interact with you on that. I think this is a very fair topic because, I compare Patrick Mahomes to some of the all-time greats, and people are like, oh, you can't do that yet. He's still so young. Well, the thing about the Travis Kelce thing is you can't say that.
I can do what I want.
Yeah, you can't say that anymore because this man's not only in his 30s, but he's put 8 years of service into the NFL. That's a very long time. Most guys don't make it past 5 years, let alone 8. And I think that Travis Kelce's got several more seasons left of great football because of everything around him and because of just who he is, and availability is everything. You can have peak seasons. Like, this is what I try to emphasize with people that talk about in any other sport about, well, this guy had a better peak time. His peak was better than this guy. That might be true. But was it sustainable? Was he able to have 5, 10, 15 great seasons? If he didn't, and this other guy did, even though he may not have had the peak this other guy did, this guy did it great for longer. And to me, that's always going to be something that I think is more recognizable as greatness. The antithesis of what greatness is when you can sustain it for longer periods of time. And that's what Travis Kelce is compared to Gronk. And again, the only guy that I even can truly compare Travis to is Tony Gonzalez, who, by the way, happened to be a Chief as well, even though he likes to claim Atlanta. But I want to move to something else because I think that this is something that it hit me late last night, and I talked to Trevor right before I knocked out because I was like, man, I want to talk about these rookies a little bit more that the Chiefs have, because let's be real. This team's going to rely on a good number of these guys to be contributors very early in the season. Based upon the fact that the Chiefs didn't really go out there, we've talked about it 100 times, they didn't go out and get guys in free agency. They didn't trade for a bunch of guys. They didn't go and get a bunch of veteran players to work around these young rookies. Guys like McDuffie, Karlaftis, probably Darian Kennard, Sky Moore, guys like that, or Leo Chenal, Brian Cook, they're all going to be probably playing at key roles within the first month and a half of the season, based upon just need and necessity. So I decided, I was like, all right, we were all three were very big and hyped about the draft. We all really liked the picks. We thought that Brett Veach did an incredible job, and there's a lot of potential that's sitting in front of us here, and this team could really take off for the next 5 to 10 years just based on this draft class alone, let alone the 2021 class that was Creed Humphrey, Nick Bolton, and Trey Pancake Papa Smith. Like, just these last two draft picks alone, these last two draft classes alone could elevate this team all the way into Patrick Mahomes' mid-30s. That's how great these last two draft classes were. Yeah. But for conversation's sake, and because I do really want to hear about it, because we really haven't touched on this, I do want to hear about the other side of that. Because something we love to do here in the Spoken Podcast is we love to maintain objectivity, I should say. We love to be objective about things, honest about things. Sure, we're fans of this team and fans of players and things of that nature, but when there's times to be a little bit more transparent about what we think about a certain player and individual, we have to do that here, whether it's unpopular or not. Cynical. Yeah, even to be a little skeptical, cynical, things of that nature. You're right. So I decided, okay, let's look at this draft class as it's currently constructed. I want to ask Trevor and Eddie and you, the viewing and listening audience, what player of this draft class do you think could be the ultimate disappointment? And I think that I don't want to tell people how to base their criteria, but I think it has to be one of the first 2 to 3 picks. That's the only guys that I think could be truly disappointing, because after the third round, you're talking about flyer picks, and even first, second, and third picks can be risks. I mean, obviously they're risks. They're guys you're drafting hoping will turn into something in the NFL level.
Not a lot of expectations.
But I'm telling you guys what I base my criteria off of. It's going to be the first couple of picks as far as who I think is going to be potential disappointments, if anybody. Maybe you're just so high on this class you don't think it's going to be anybody. And on the flip side, what's the guy that is going to surprise you this season, or you're anticipating to surprise you this season for the positive? Because I don't want to just be negative here and harp down on a potential suitor of being a guy that can be a bust. I want to talk about both sides of the spectrum here. So I'll start it off. I think this is where I'm at on this. I think, honestly, the biggest disappointment that could the potential, I don't want to say will be, I'm saying the guy that I think has the most potential to be a disappointment is George Karlaftis. And it's sad that I have to say it like that, because I'm actually very big on George Karlaftis. I love the pick. I think this guy has everything you want. I think he's got all the, like we talked about last week, Trevor, he has everything you want to have down. He's already prepared mentally, physically, emotionally, all those things. He's ready. He's all about ball. He wants to just play football. He wants to be great. So I think he has a better chance of being awesome than being bad, but he also has the upside of being bad. And here's the reason why. Because honestly, if you really look at the Spag style of defense, he doesn't fit it. Spags likes more of the guys that are freak athletes, guys that are humongous and have those quick bursts. He's more known for guys like that. Whereas Karlaftis is more of a power through kind of guy. He doesn't have all the cool moves and swims and things like that.
He's pretty damn quick, man.
He doesn't have a quick burst, so that's actually what was on his profile, is that he doesn't have a quick burst. He's very powerful. He's compared to guys like Ryan Kerrigan, who are just so physically just superior when it comes to strength, they'll blow through a tackle. That's kind of that's a problem though when you're moving from college to the pro game. Is that a lot of times you're facing left tackles and right tackles that are 6'5", 320 pounds, and you're not just going to do that. You can do it at times, but it's not a consistent thing. So if Karlaftis doesn't figure out a new approach, or at least tinker with his approach and learning the swim moves, learning how to get up and under, around tackles, around the double teams, I think he can get in trouble. I think that's a lot of potential. And plus, we have to emphasize the fact he doesn't have a great supporting cast right now. Going into your rookie year, you want to have guys around you that are productive and are already in their late 20s, early 30s to kind of teach you the ways, to kind of get you better acclimated, and quite frankly, take the focus off of you. People aren't going to sit here and gear on a rookie as much because they know they have this guy and that guy around. Now, having Chris Jones in the middle is going to help, but it's so bad on the other side with Frank Clark that how are people really going to take George Karlaftis as an actual threat when he's going to be getting double teamed as a rookie, a guy that people are having high expectations of having 10 to 15 sacks? Could he? Sure. But are we honestly expecting that? Because like we talked about last week, TJ Watt, as great as he is, his rookie season with a stellar defensive line next to him, had 7 sacks. So the production is going to be very boom or bust for me when it comes to George Karlaftis. Again, I want to emphasize, I'm big on the kid. I think he's got supreme potential. I love the kind of guy he is, and I think he's got tons of talent to make this thing work. But if we're looking at the first couple of picks, I'm extremely big on McDuffie. I think that dude is going to be a stud in this league. There were so many teams that wanted that guy, and he plays a position where you can really excel quickly because cornerbacks, they usually develop a lot faster. That's usually how it goes because you're on an island. You kind of have to be your own man, and therefore you kind of grow up a little faster in the league.
System.
Exactly. Yes, thank you. And I think that McDuffie's going to be that guy. So I think Karlaftis is the one, if I'm looking at the first couple of picks, has the biggest chance of being a disappointment. I'm hoping for the best. Trevor, who is yours?
I like that. I think I like Karlaftis. I think he's filling the biggest glaring need that we had, so there's a lot of pressure on him to perform. I have some hot takes that we'll get to on him later on down the road here on the show at a different episode, but I actually have some high hopes for Karlaftis, and I think he has a good season because I think he is very good. I think he is going to do well. I think just off the draft capital, I'm never a fan. I don't care. I don't care if it's the main need of a team. I'm never a fan of trading up to get a defensive back or a corner. I'm still not. I love Trent McDuffie, but that's my guy actually here.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of pressure on him. Not necessarily pressure, but there is, like I said, with the draft capital, being the guy that we took first. We not only took first, we moved up multiple spots to get him. Granted, I knew multiple teams were eyeing him and wanted to take him. That one of those teams being the Buffalo Bills, becoming pretty much our biggest rival at this point. And the team that everyone wants to crown as the best team in the AFC, yet they've won nothing. I love him, and I think I this is just my devil's advocate portion of how I feel about him. I do have high hopes for him, and I think he will do good in this league. But I do think if any one of these players, as far as where they were taken, the position they're filling, with Charvarius Ward being gone, him filling some big shoes and having to perform pretty much early, being a day one starter, being alongside L'Jarius Sneed is arguably the number one corner on this team. It's coming from a great program, but I have to say that I'm never a fan of moving up that early in the draft or moving up at all to go get a corner. I think there's so many corners that fall in drafts, and when me and Lance have even looked over the history of first round corners, trading up for or taking that early in the draft in the first round. It's very hit and miss.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of talented guys that were supposed to be big deals in the league, and they fizzled out quickly. I'm not saying that's what he's going to be, but I think that's the main thing that gives me pause is because I like Trent McDuffie's talent. I think he's a NFL-ready guy, but he's also one of those guys that can be a massive bust and could have a rough year, could get burnt a lot, because the NFL game is just that much faster than the collegiate, game is. So I think, him coming in, quarterbacks are going to want to target the new guy. It could be a rough start for him this season. That could definitely be a thing. I know he's very shifty. He's he's got a high IQ, and he knows how to be in the right place at the right time. He comes from, like I said, a great program in Washington. But if any one of these guys is going to give me pause, it's going to be Trent McDuffie, opposite L'Jarius Sneed. I think he's going to be targeted by a lot of quarterbacks, and we have a very, very tough schedule going against a lot of really good quarterbacks and a lot of good offenses. So I think he's one of those guys that if I'm going to choose anyone to get exposed early and have a rough start to the season, it's going to be Trent McDuffie. I think there's going to be some growing pains for him. Corners, I know you said a lot of corners do succeed in this league, and they can definitely become a player early. We saw that with like Marcus Peters and players like that. They become guys, dogs from the day one, from the get go. But I think this is a scenario where if I'm putting my money on anybody to struggle early, from as far as like how much draft capital we put into somebody, and like as far as the early picks go, and my pause, it would be Trent McDuffie, just because I'm iffy about early corners like that. I really, really am. He could absolutely be a game changer, but he can absolutely be a liability early on. Not saying that he can't grow and potentially get better and learn from those mistakes, which I 100% believe he would if this does take place. But my pick is going to be Trent McDuffie. If anybody, I'm putting a little bit of pause on their early success. It's going to be him.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Trevor on that one as well. I think that's the biggest question I have is Trent McDuffie. Not because he's a bad player or anything like that. Not because his game can't translate to the NFL, but he's such a small corner coming into this league. I remember reading his biggest I guess con you can say was he can't get away from the tackle. Once the receiver gets up to him and kind of like blocks for the running back or whoever has the ball, he can't get away from that tackle. So I feel like he's going to be a guy that's going to struggle early on because the first 8 weeks is we're going up against great teams in the first 8 weeks of the season. So I do feel like they're going to pick on him just for being a rookie, being a little bit undersized. So I do feel like he's going to struggle to catch on. I do think he will become a better player as the season progresses, as his career progresses. But I think early on in his career, we're going to see a little bit of a struggle. But nothing too bad to where we're going to be like, oh, shit, they would just is he not going to work out? I don't think it's going to be to that level. There's going to be a little bit of questions, but I do think he's gonna elevate his game, and he's going to answer those questions, those doubts that we have as his career progresses.
Now, I guess I'll respond to it just a little bit. I think there is I don't want to say a misconception, but I kind of feel like that's the right word for it when it comes to McDuffie's size, because I know you mentioned he's a small corner. He's actually not a small corner.
He's like average size.
He's small in the Spags tendency size, because Spags usually likes the 6 foot and above type of.
He's what, 5'9"?
5'11". He's 5'11".
Is he 5'11"?
Yeah, he's not like a. They said 5'10", 5'11".
Okay. I think that they have him listed at 5'10".
And he's only 21, so like his body's going to continually grow. He grows till he's 25. Like
that
every
wasn't
other
really
human
something
male.
that bothered me. It was just that where we moved up to go get this guy. We put a lot of. Not pressure, but we put a lot of trust in.
Sure.
Taking a corner that early, moving up as the Chiefs when we knew we needed edge help. That was a statement.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So he's going to have to be the guy.
Oh, it was shocking as hell to me, too, because I thought we were going edge rush.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, his biggest struggle was bigger wide receivers just because they can catch the ball.
In our schedule this year, facing some receivers.
I get it. It's not. I'm not saying he's a bad player. No. It's just he's going to struggle early on because the receivers in the NFL are a lot bigger now. They're quick, which obviously he can match speed-wise, but he does struggle a lot with big receivers. So we'll see how his game translates to the NFL. But like I said, it's no bashing to him or anything like that. I do think he's going to get better.
All I'll say is to the size situation, I think it's only because of the fact that Spags, like I said, likes the Brashad Breeland, Charvarius Ward types, where they're around 6 foot tall, a little bit lankier, longer arms type of cornerbacks, which I get, because ideally you do want that. But there are certain individuals, like Darrelle Revis himself, was like 5'9 and a half, 5'10", and this dude was one of the greatest corners to ever live. So I'm not trying to like put that on McDuffie, because you're right, Trevor. There's a lot of pressure and expectation with that. Yeah. But I think that, again, there's a mentality with corners and wide receivers that they know they're on their own. And they have to go and do it on their own. So they can't really rely on anybody else for them to do what they need to do, get open or cover the guy. And to your point, Eddie, about the big receiver thing, You're right. He did struggle against that. You know who else does? Just about every other corner in the history of the NFL. Because big receivers are able to go and get balls that 5'11", 6-foot corners can't go get.
Yeah.
Because the wide receivers 6'4", 6'5", 6'3" even. You're not going to go and get those balls sometimes because those guys are just bigger than you.
Well, I'll say this too, to your Karlaftis point.
Yeah.
Most successful corners have a good front, have a good defensive line and edge players that get to the quarterback, which simultaneously helps their success. Typically, you don't see an all-time great corner with terrible defensive line help because those two coincide and they help each other go hand in hand. So if you're right about Karlaftis and we're not getting much pressure, I think McDuffie could definitely suffer from that as well. So both those guys can have a rough start to their career. They're both not up meeting the standard that we are expecting.
Yeah.
So that could be a damning thing if both those guys are struggling like that. But from my point, I believe in Karlaftis. I'm just going to say it. I think Karlaftis is going to lead this team in sacks this season. I think he's going to be a menace up there, up on the edge. I really do. Just from watching his tape over and over and over again, the guy's relentless, and that's what we've been missing. We've been missing a relentless menace. You know what I mean? So having a guy like that on the edge, I think, is going to help McDuffie. So to kind of counter my point about McDuffie, I think long term, I think it might be a little slow out the gate, but he's not. Coming into how the defense was last year, the defense was bad.
Yeah.
You know, so drafting a corner that high into a bad defense that was terrible at finishing plays and sacking quarterbacks, that's not a good spot for a corner because you don't have that pressure up front to help you create plays and feed off the mistakes of quarterbacks. That's how most corners find their success. Making plays. That's what made Marcus Peters' situation so great. He came into a stacked defense with Tom Bali and Justin Houston, Eric Berry, a lot of good players around him when he came into this team. McDuffie doesn't really have that. He has, the corpse of Frank Clark right now. Chris Jones is still great, but we're missing. We need to change a lot of things as far as finishing plays defensively. So I think there's so many ways this defense can go, and I think Karlaftis and McDuffie got to both be good in order for them to both be good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think both those guys kind of play hand in hand into their success. So I think my belief in Karlaftis this season, heading off to a great start to his career in the NFL, I think is going to give McDuffie a great chance to be that guy, let alone the other guys in the back as well, with L'Jarius Sneed and Juan Thornhill supposedly going to have an all-pro year according to him.
Bring it on. Yeah. I'm all for that. Shit.
I love that confidence.
But to your point, because I really do appreciate that point, that I think if Karlaftis balls out this year, has like 11, 12 sacks, McDuffie and all those other guys are going to reciprocate and benefit off of what Karlaftis is giving, or reciprocate.
When I say he leads us in sacks, I don't think anyone on the Chiefs defense had more than 4 sacks last season, so it's not going to be that tough.
And this is the reason I brought up Robert Quinn coming to Kansas City, why I think the Chiefs should consider trading for him, because
I just don't think it's going to happen.
Again, if you cut he had 18.5 sacks last year. You cut him in half. He's tied for Chris Jones for sacks last year with 9, and he would probably lead the team in this year realistically with 9, because that's probably the number you're looking at as far as the team leader in sacks this year.
Right.
That's on the optimistic side.
Yeah.
But to your point, I do want to give it one more go, and then I'm going to talk about the optimistic side of who I think is going to have a surprising year. We'll move to that in just a second. But to that point, Trevor, I think that we saw the way the Brett Veach built this defense, and I think and I know this is high praise, man. So if you want to crush me, it's cool. But this is what I've been thinking about all week. I think Brett Veach had this in mind when building this defense this year: the Legion of Boom.
Yeah.
He wanted to build as great of a secondary as possible, because if we remember, that defense for 4 straight years led the league in defense. They have the number 1 ranked defense for 4 consecutive
young,
seasons.
Fast dudes,
I don't think a defense has ever done
everywhere.
that.
Yeah.
I don't think a defense has ever done that outside of the Seahawks in the 2010s.
Yeah.
Don't think that's ever happened. And they did it. And what was their defense built upon? Not pressure on the quarterbacks, because they had Michael Bennett. They had guys that can get to the quarterback. Curse, I believe, was on that team. Irvin was on the
Dunbar.
Yeah, those guys were.
Bunch of really good
role
players.
And they had great middle linebackers. Yeah. They had Bobby Wagner, KJ Wright,
Young
guys like
Bobby
that.
Wagner.
Yeah, very young guys. So their front 7 was good. Let's be real.
Yeah.
But they had 3 Hall of Famers in their primes in their secondary.
Yeah.
So I think Brett Veach looked at this opportunity as, let's build our own version of Legion of Boom. Let's get our Richard Sherman. Let's get our Cam Chancellor. Let's get our Earl Thomas. And that's why I'm big on McDuffie, is because I think they envision him that way. I'm not saying they didn't envision Karlaftis to be a guy that can get to the quarterback.
Imagine what our cover 2 is going to look like.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So I think what their intention here is, the confidence of this defense is not built on the pass pass rush. Even though I personally prefer that mentality, I would rather have an elite pass rush than an elite secondary. That's just my personal preference because I think that's more of an effective defense.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the majority of Tom Brady's defenses, they were able to get to the quarterback and apply pressure, which is why they won Super Bowls. I would prefer that. But as we all saw, the Legion of Boom worked. It worked greatly. It gave those Seahawks several opportunities to win Super Bowls. They just couldn't capitalize more times than they did.
Yeah.
So I think that's what they're doing here, and I think McDuffie is a centerpiece to that because we do forget about L'Jarius Sneed. We do forget about the potential of Juan Thornhill. We forget a lot that they've just signed Justin Reed. We forget about Lonnie Johnson's potential. He could become maybe something in this defense. We talk about Brian Cook. We talk about these guys that could potentially be juggernauts in this secondary. It's possible that all of them click. But I think if McDuffie clicks, it sets everything off. It sets everything off in this defense. And to that point, on the flip side, Trevor, like you said about them helping each other, if McDuffie can lock down wide receiver ones, that makes George Karlaftis' job even easier to have the numbers that you think he's going to have.
And vice versa.
So that's why it's so pivotal that both of them, like you said, it'll be hell on earth if neither one of them can succeed. And if they both do, oh my God, Mark Gunnels from Arrowhead Pride talks about how this has the potential of being a top 5 to 10 defense. That's the way it happens. Is if both these rookies have stellar seasons. If neither one of them has stellar seasons, there's no way in hell this is a top 15 defense. Yeah. This, like I said, some of these guys are going to play pivotal roles day one, and both of these guys are day one guys. They're going to be guys this team is going to be relying on.
They kind of have to be, yeah.
Now, on the optimistic side, I think that this can span across all the picks the Chiefs had. I believe it was 8 picks they had in total.
Yeah.
10 picks, 10 total picks. I think this is going to range across the board. And this is the most interesting part of all this because I am so hell-bent on one particular player in this draft. I told you guys that as ironic as it is that I was so big on the Chiefs bolstering their defense and getting as many defensive players as possible and building their pass rush and getting secondary help and getting all these things, I found myself more excited about the guys they got on offense. Because I think the guys that they got on offense in this draft are going to have incredible seasons. Not just incredible seasons, but I think incredible careers in this offense. And my guy is Darian Kennard, and I'm sticking with that. I'm going to continue to preach. Quite frankly, I'm confident about my thoughts on the offensive line because last year I said I nailed all 5 starters in the offensive line. I said Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey would beat out Austin Blythe and beat out it was Andrew Wiley, I think, that Trey Smith was fighting against. I was like, they're going to beat both those guys out and beat them day one starters and never look back. And that is exactly what happened. I think Darian Kennard is one of those dudes. I think he is absolutely everything the Chiefs needed out of right tackle since Mitchell Schwartz went down with that back injury in 2020. He is everything. He is so supremely talented, and I think he has all the wherewithal and self-awareness and he's all about football, just like I talked about with George Karlaftis. That's the biggest thing I loved about this draft class, is that Brett Veach went and got guys that are just obsessed with this game. They're not
angry and mean.
Not that it's wrong to focus on a brand. I know Orlando Brown's big on that. He wants to build a brand.
Yeah, no prima donnas.
It is a business too. At the end of the day,
no prima donnas in this draft.
But these dudes want to just play football and make a mark on a team that can be a potential dynasty when we all look back at this 10, 15 years from now. And I think that Darian Kennard, because I looked at this and I like to draw comparisons because as much as I talk about George Karlaftis and why I'm concerned about a potential disappointing year, is because of the lack of supporting cast around him. Because you brought up Tom Ali, Justin Houston. Imagine if he had just one of those guys.
Yeah.
How much easier George Karlaftis' job would be this season if he had one of those titans of the game playing next to them. You better chill with that Frank Clark shit. But to that point, Darian Kennard has all the support you could ever dream of.
Yeah.
Think about it. Just on the right side
This
of the
offensive line's gonna be so
line
good,
alone,
man.
he would have Trey Pancake Papa Smith right next to him.
Yeah.
One of the best right guards in football already. And then Creed Humphrey. And then Joe Tooney. And then Orlando Brown Jr. It's one of the best, if not the best offensive line in football. It's
going to be so good.
And I think Jerry Kennard's that guy. And here's why I'm so confident about this. Because I think, despite the fact that a lot of the grades that he had in the draft were very optimistic about his upside, there's also a lot of critiques about his game, too. Some of the things they talked about in the negative side of things was he's persistently wide and late with his hands, leaving his chest exposed and bear-hugging defenders to sustain blocks, high pad level that saps his stopping power and anchor, has a bad habit of leaning and dipping head into contact that results into falling or too many blocks. Those are all coaching Those are all things that are fixable. It's not saying doesn't have enough talent, is just incapable, doesn't have enough strength.
It's bad habits.
Yeah, bad habits, exactly. Yeah. And if you guys listen to Mike Tomlin on the I think it was the I Am Athlete podcast this last week, he talked about what? Why are coaches paid the money they're paid? Why are they so important to teams? Because they get that stuff out of players. The skill is there for most of these guys. It's does the coach do their job? And that's why I'm so confident about Darian Kennard, is because I think the Chiefs have more than enough on their coaching staff, which I told you. I think the Chiefs have the 3 best head coaches in the division on their coaching staff, with Matt Nagy, or Andy Reid, Matt Nagy, and Eric Bieniemy. I think those would be the 3 best head coaches in the league, and they're all coaching who? Darian Kennard in this offense. Yep. And it's funny because his draft grade, they said overall he'd be a high-end backup and a potential starting player, starting on the 3rd round grade with a 7.1. You know what that sounds like? Trey Smith. Trey Smith had a 3rd round grade, only 0.5 higher in grade, was 7.6, and all of his deficiencies are the same exact problems.
And Trey Smith without the injury history.
Yeah, they said, exactly. They said he did not have good enough footwork, that he rose his pads too high. All the same problems. Did you see those problems last season with Trey Smith? No. He looked like an all-pro right guard. Yeah. Day one.
Pancaking.
Because he was built for that type of offense. And it's funny, too, because Darian Kennard is also from a zone running scheme, just like Creed Humphrey, just like Orlando Brown Jr., just like Joe Tooney, just like Pancake Papa Smith.
Rojo's gonna eat, boys.
Those guys are all built to do what this offense doesn't have to do, but can do if they really want to.
Yeah.
And it adds that much more incentive, and it all starts with completing. It's literally, I know it's overused, but I'm going to say it. It's just like when Thanos put that final diamond in that bad boy, and all of a sudden that shit just clicked. I feel like Darian Kennard is that 5th and final piece to this offensive line to sure Patrick Mahomes with the best offensive line in football. That's where I stand on it. I think Darian Kennard is my vote for the guy that I think is going to have the breakout holy shit season, because he's going to make it look easy on the right tackle. Trevor, who are you?
Yeah, man, I love that. That was going to be my pick as well.
Double down on it.
No. I want to talk about my other guy who was a close second. I'm going to stick to the defensive side. I'm going to call him I think Leo Chenal is a problem. I really do. I think that's the guy we've been missing. And granted, I love our linebacker core. Bolton was my guy last year. I from watching his tape from the draft. Missouri product. I loved everything, and he did nothing but damn near already became a captain for this defense last year. He was incredible. Led the team in tackles. So I love our linebacker and Willie Gay as well. As long as that dude can stay healthy, he's an athletic freak. But I think Leo Chenal is I'm going to call him Micah Parsons, because he's like the white Micah Parsons out here. I think he's going to be one of those guys that's going to be
that's pretty good.
So versatile. A guy that we can put around in coverage, a guy that we can play on the edge, rotate him in and out in the middle, blitzes up the middle, playing Mike. I think this is going to be one of those chess piece kind of guys. Not only has the attitude, but I think he's got the wherewithal, the IQ, a guy that just wants to go out there and play football. And you said guys that love the game. This is one of those guys that I just fully believe in. Yeah. And he can kind of get lost in the mix of all these names that got drafted. People can kind of forget about him a little bit. But Death Row, my guy, I'm excited about this kid. I really, really am. I think he's going to be one of those energy bunny kind of guys for this defense. And he's more of an outspoken guy. Like Bolton's more on the more stoic, just get the job done kind of guy. But he'll also end your life. But Leo's going to end your life and let you know beforehand and afterhand. I think he's one of those guys that's just similar to the way I feel about Kennard and the aggressiveness that I think Kennard's going to bring to this offensive line. I think he is a day one starter. I'm fully on board with you, bro. Everything you said about him, I am so stoked about this kid. I think you can establish new habits and get rid of old ones. That's a very easy thing to do just on one off season. You can definitely change mechanics and bad tendencies quickly, especially for a young guy like that who's just out there wanting to play football and loves the game. So I'm excited about him. But Leo Chenal is this guy that I think, like I said, we kind of been missing. And he has a track record of staying healthy. He finishes plays. He's brutal. I just think he's similar to. I know he's not Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons is kind of a one of one. So that's very high praise right away. Yeah. But I think the job that he's going to do is similar to that. I think he's going to have a lot of different responsibilities, and I think he's going to maybe not year one be that guy right away, But I think for the future preferences and just moving forward, and I think as the season progresses, I think he's a guy that's going to kind of get more into his own and become a massive part of this linebacker core that we have, and maybe supersede some other guys in this linebacker room quickly, because I think he's going to be that vital. And I think that's maybe why we have so much trust in this defensive line, that we know we have something in him possibly that he could be utilized in different ways. With this sneaky speed that he has and his ability to finish plays is something we've been missing in this defensive front. So I'm going with Leo Chenal. I love the aggression. We've been missing those mean guys that are just mean from start to finish of the game. Just mean. We have had guys out there that were talking a lot, these past couple seasons, but were taking plays off too many times, and they weren't backing up with their words a lot of times. I think this is one of those guys that's just a full go, nonstop until the game's over, and I could be more excited to see what he can. He may slowly progress into this rotation. So we might not see it right away, but I think as the season goes on, middle of the year, week 10, week 11, I think that's when we really see this kid start to really come into his own. The seasons get long, guys are dealing with nagging injuries, and he kind of comes in and he's just nonstop, full gore, full aggression. I think this guy's made for football. I really do. I think this guy's made for that smash mouth kind of football, and I think he's going to make a lot of plays this season. I think we're going to be excited to see what he's made of. Oh,
you just got me excited as hell about Leo Chenal, because I feel the same way.
I'm excited for him, man. I really am.
Yeah. That's how great this draft class is, man. Is you really have to.
The way I felt about Bolton last year. The way I felt about Bolton last year on this defense is the way I feel about Leo Chenal. Right, that's how.
You said what?
The way I felt about Bolton last year coming into the draft. He was my favorite pick of the draft last year.
And that panned out pretty damn well.
And that's the same way. I love my linebackers, but that's the same way. I think he's even more versatile and ready to take on more than Bolton was, because Bolton struggled in coverage, if we're being honest. He wasn't the best coverage guy, which is not really his strength, which is fine. But I think you pair him with a Leo Chenal and a Willie Gay and their athleticism. They're a little more gifted and quicker at the hips and everything than Bolton is. Bolton's the guy that's going to go get after the quarterback and hit you in the backfield and not let you get past the line of scrimmage. Those two can coincide and benefit off of each other's skill sets. And I think Leo Chenal's going to be just a chess piece guy who can just move around and play in different ways. And I think he's going to become a very valuable player on this defense quickly.
Oh, shit. You guys have good players. No, I'm going to go with the safety, Brian Cook. I just love his aggressiveness, who he is, who like, he reminds me so much of the, I lost his name. Who we just lose? Tyrann Mathieu.
Yeah.
God damn.
He's got that mindset.
He has that mindset, that mentality, that toughness to his game. I
He's
believe.
gritty.
I believe one of his overviews of our strengths in the draft was that his alpha mentality, the way he controls his area. I think he's going to be one of those guys. I think he's going to be one of those guys that's going to beat out Juan Thornhill.
The All-Pro?
And he's gonna push Justin Reed to his best. And I think if Justin Reed was to go down, I think Brian Cook is gonna be that guy who's gonna come in and he's gonna control the backfield. We're not gonna have to worry about that. We can potentially we signed Justin Reed to a massive contract, so I know that's going to be our starter. But I do expect Brian Cook to compete for that starting role. You can probably pair those up in the backfield, do like kind of like a cover 2 kind of thing, and I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see how Andy Reid Spagnuolo utilizes him in the defense. I do think he's going to be one of those names that nobody's expecting. He's gonna come in and he's gonna shock a lot of people. I think his alpha mentality is gonna help him end his game in the NFL level. So that's gonna be my pick for me.
I like the Brian Cook pick as well because of the fact that he's a player I don't really know if he has a true position. I know they lump him up as a safety. I know they have him as a defensive back, but he has the exact same physical measurements as Micah Parsons. Yeah. You brought him up just a second ago, Trevor. Yep. He's built almost the exact same size and shape and everything.
Yeah.
And he's in his. I mean, every single. If you go and look up any draft, combine prospect profile, anything,
expect him in a lot of blitz
everyone
packages.
talks about how physical this dude is, how much of a freak he is, and the only thing that like worries me about Brian Cook is guys like him a lot of times get injured because they're hitting the fuck out of people so badly that they end up like because he has shoulder.
Justin Reed's the same way though.
Yeah,
he lays the wood, bro.
He has Brian Cook has a lot of like shoulder injuries, things like that. So that's the only thing I'm concerned about is he going to be able to be durable? That's my only concern. When he's on the field, I think he can be deadly, and that's another piece that I'm talking about. Like you said, an X factor in that backfield that can really add that pressure in the middle of the field. Because what do we know about this defense for the last forever is that the middle of the field is always just wide open.
Yeah.
Dudes are just getting those chunk yards every damn time.
That's my only concern with him is getting beat over the top too many times.
So
Tyron started doing that more and more as he aged too.
And the biggest reason I'm so big, and I love that your guys' picks were on the defensive side because although I'm so optimistic about Darian Kennard, and I think this dude's going to be an absolute stud at right tackle, I like focusing on the defensive side because why? The majority of this defense is going to be based upon and hinging upon the youth movement, as we've talked about. And those two guys are two catalysts to this defense, of whether it's going to be awesome or bad.
And it's an attitude change.
It's an attitude change. That's what I love about
young,
this.
aggressive guys. Man.
And there's so much versatility to this defense. Literally, just 6, 7, 8 months ago, we're talking about this defense having no versatility.
Yeah.
About how there's just, you can't put guys in multiple positions. You can't swing guys around. Now, Spags has got so much talent to work with, and this was something I was going to bring up on a later show, but I actually want to bring it up right now, is the fact, you guys know that Steve Spagnuolo has never been a defensive coordinator for 4 years at a time in his career. He's coached for 25 seasons. He has never been a defensive coordinator for 4 straight seasons. This will be his 4th season as the Chiefs defensive coordinator. And how fitting is it that in his first 4th season as a defensive coordinator in the league, he does not have that field general like a Tyrann Mathieu. He doesn't have those prolific, surefire veteran players across the board on his defense. The pressure is on Steve Spagnuolo. This is his year to shine as a DC. If there was ever a year, because he gets a lot of credit, deservingly so, for being the only defensive coordinator. I think he's won, a championship with 3 different franchises as a defensive coordinator.
Yep.
He gets credit for all of that, and I will praise him for that forever.
Yeah.
But this is the year of all years because he no longer has the Tyrann Mathieu, that coach on the field. He's going to have to develop these guys and develop them quickly to become what if they ever are going to be something special, they need to be them quickly. He needs to have Karlaftis going in all cylinders. He has to have guys like McDuffie and these dudes in the secondary and in the middle of the field, like you both explained just a minute ago, to have these guys playing at the top level now. If there was ever a year where Spags has to prove this dude really is the defensive coordinator a lot of us believe he can and will be and should be and would be, it has to be this season. And that's where I think that this season is so pivotal for a lot of things, because if it fails, we're going to have these discussions in about 7-8 months of, do the Chiefs move off Steve Spagnuolo? He can't access this talent that they gave him, which is a ton. If he can't maximize it and this team loses or falls short because of that, we have to start thinking about these things. It's a cutthroat business, man. I know Andy is one of the more loyal guys in the league, and Spags is his boy. But he had to fire Bob Sutton when he realized they couldn't get the job done anymore. So this is a year for Spags to really prove I belong here. This is my team. My first 4-year stint as offensive coordinator. This is why I am who I am. This is why Andy Reid trusts me and goes and sits on the bench when my defense is on the field, because he knows I got this. This is a very defining year for a lot of people, man, and I think Steve's one of those guys for sure. So that's where I'm leaving it. Let us know what you guys think. Hit us up on the YouTube channel. Let us know what you guys think about that discussion, because I mean that's a very interesting topic to be had all the way through training camp, because there's a lot of anticipation. We don't really know what to expect from any of these guys, but we're staying very optimistic, and I want to clarify, I do believe in George Karlaftis. I am a fan. I think I would love nothing more than Trevor to be 100% right. This dude leads the team in sacks, but if he does lead the team in sacks, it better be double digits, because if he's leading the team in sacks with 8, this pass rush is fucked. Eddie Ortiz, it is finally for the first time in 3 fucking weeks to have the Eddie Hour. What's going on with you? I know you want to do your thing, man, so have at it.
I'm asking a couple questions. I just got a couple questions, and then we'll dive into the whole World Cup kind of thing, and we'll just kind of discuss what we think and stuff like that.
Okay.
I don't know how much you guys touched about it last week, but we kind of get into a little bit more detailed. and see what happens. But first, obviously, it's official. We are getting Triple G versus Canelo 3. So,
this is news. I didn't know this.
So, yeah, I believe it was announced yesterday.
Yep.
So, I want to get your thoughts and reactions to that. What do you expect from this fight? And why is it that we are not seeing the rematch that obviously Canelo promised right after that fight, that last fight against Bivol?
I'm going into this topic very uninformed. Not misinformed, uninformed. I don't know the agreements or who made what happen, what was shifting around. I don't know the availability of was his name Pirtle or Bivol. Thank you, Bivol, the guy that beat Canelo, the fair and square beat him.
Yeah.
I don't know what that situation is. Maybe there's something on the background that I don't really know. I'd have to look into this. But what I'll talk about when it comes to the Triple G and Canelo 3, if I'm not mistaken, is first of all, this is a fight I wanted to see for a long time because I felt like I was in agreement with you in a lot of things, Eddie, that you said about Triple G, and I don't want to speak for you, but I know you'd said that Triple G probably did win both those fights. You felt that way, and I know it was very even, so I get why you felt that way. So the best way of solving this is to have that third and final fight. So I think this has been long overdue. So although I agree with you that the Bivol Canelo fight should happen, I do believe if I believe that boxing knows what they're doing at all, which is rare these days, but they figure themselves out. Broke clock is right twice a day. I think if they know what they're doing, they're hyping up the Bivol Canelo rematch. And I'm gonna be honest with you. When it comes to the Triple G Canelo fight, I'm gonna stake my flag on this one. I think Canelo's gonna whoop him. I think Canelo's gonna whoop him. You know
Triple G's
why?
getting up there in age too.
Hey, Triple G,
He's in his 40s.
Yeah,
exactly. How long ago was that last fight?
Like 4 years ago?
Exactly. A lot can happen in 4 years. Canelo is in the prime of his career.
Yeah.
And Canelo just lost his first fight in a decade. Over a decade. I think he lost to
nice
Mayweather.
payday for Triple G, too,
Yeah, he
in
lost
a
to
few
Mayweather
years.
in what, 2011? Like, that was a decade ago.
Yeah.
And that's his first loss, and he got whooped.
He ain't losing back.
I watched the fight again. I went on YouTube, watched the fight, Canelo versus Bivol. Bivol was whooping his ass.
Yeah, he was.
You think Canelo's trying to get humiliated again?
Hell no.
I'm telling you, he's going to win. We're going to see one of the better versions of Canelo in this fight. No disrespect to Triple G. The man is a Hall of Fame boxer. One of the greatest to ever live. His time is done. And Canelo is going to get this done. I don't care if I can look back at this if I'm wrong and own every single thing I'm saying right now. I don't believe I'm going to be sitting here saying I'm wrong. I think Canelo's going to get this done. I think he's 12 years younger than Triple G, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's going to get this fight done, and then we're going to get what we want, Eddie, which is Bivol Canelo 2. And then we're gonna have an even greater discussion because that's the fight that everyone's looking at, and I might be worried about that one. I ain't gonna lie, because Bivol is just a bigger, younger specimen, dude, and I really respect his game. After he won that fight fair and square, there's no debating he won that fight. I'm worried about that one. That's going to be interesting to see. But I think they want to get Canelo an opportunity to have a nice premier win and then go and get Bivol again.
Yeah, this is definitely a filler fight, in my opinion.
Call Triple G a filler. I like that.
At this time of his career, yeah,
Okay,
I think it is because we all know what everyone wants to see. We want to see Canelo get his revenge, and then the fact I will give. I mean, I know we're talking about Triple G's fight right now, but I don't think Canelo's going to lose 2 in a row. I just don't see that happening. I don't think that's good for boxing. If I'm being honest, that's the golden boy right now. So I think this should be an entertaining fight because this is the third one, third edition to this legendary matchup. These guys, and they've been good fights. They've been damn near even fights. Some would say Triple G won both of the original 2 fights, and they were very much blow for blow fights. So I think this could definitely be a good fight, but I do think Canelo takes this one. I don't think there's going to be any knockouts because Triple G is such a skilled fighter and a very good defensive fighter as well. So I expect it to go the distance unless something crazy happens and the old man Triple G gets knocked out somehow. That could definitely happen, but I just think he's such a skilled fighter and a smart fighter, especially at this point of his career. He knows how to keep himself on his feet. I think it'll be a good fight. I think they'll dance, for the entirety of the exhibition here. But I do think this is a filler fight for the most part, just to kind of fill the gap until we get the Bivol next, the Bivol 2, Canelo Bivol 2. And in that fight, I'm sticking with Canelo. I'm just going to get my prediction now. I think Canelo stepped up a weight class in that fight. He got gassed a little earlier than he normally does because he was heavier, and that's just that. a few pounds can affect a boxer massively.
Yep.
Your legs can go out so much quicker than normal. You're not used to it. He's trained at a certain weight for such a long time, moving up that. I actually gained a lot more respect for Canelo, even though he did lose that fight. Moving up like that is not easy, especially a guy that's very skilled and young and vital like Bivol is. I think that's going to be a great. I'm looking forward to the second time around, and I think that's going to be a different fight this time. But yes, this will be a fight I would like to watch. Triple G. I mean, these fights were always entertaining. These guys will always go blow for blow, so they very good boxing, very good two legends. But I think the Golden Boy. I know he's not necessarily the Golden Boy, but he is the Golden Boy of this era of boxing, and everyone wants to see him win. And I think this is a great chance for him to rebound off that loss. I do not see Canelo losing 2 bouts in a row.
The first fight, Triple G was 35. The second fight, Triple G was 36. He is 40 going into this fight. Like I said before, Canelo likes to evade fighters that can beat him. Even though we all saw the fights. Triple G won those fights fair and square, but obviously he was robbed by the judges. But that's a totally different story.
What fight? Real quick, because I don't know. I'm not asking facetiously. What fighters has he evaded?
Triple G earlier in his career, when everybody wanted him to see him.
Fought Mayweather at 20.
Yeah, and then after that, he learned how to evade fighters. So,
but you said he was evading the fighters. I don't remember that.
And then Julio Cesar Chavez, he waited until obviously he was dealing with drug issues and all that stuff. So
he waited for him to get on drugs.
He fought him then. No, because he said I'll never fight Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. And then obviously we all saw the story about Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. And then he was like, I'll fight him. We all knew how that shit was gonna go because obviously Chavez Jr. is definitely struggling with drugs and drug use, and he has been for the past few years.
Sure.
Triple G, everybody was expecting the third fight the year right after, but obviously Canelo said that the cycle was closed and done. So what changed in Canelo's mind between then and now? Well, the age. Obviously, Triple G's not the same fighter who he was back then. 4 years from 36 to 40. That's a massive gap.
And he's fought 13 times in that span. He's fought a bunch in that span.
So, I do think Canelo is going to come out, and obviously I'm going to bet for Triple G. That's who I do.
Petty.
I don't give a fuck. But I do think Canelo is going to come out and this is a fight just because he lost and he's so butthurt. Yeah, this kind of like a fight to kind of like, oh, see, I'm the guy. He's like, I fought Triple G again. I beat him up. Blah, blah, blah.
Hey, this is a great redemption situation for a Triple G, though.
So, yeah. I mean,
bragging rights at 40, you
if
knock
Triple G
Canelo
wins,
out. That'd be wild.
I'll just all over that TV.
That poor TV.
Yeah, I just want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, for sure.
Obviously, we know he's evading Bivol, so that's what he does. I was gonna ask you guys before we get into what I want to talk about, the whole Deshaun Watson kind of thing. Obviously, he's settled 20 of the 24 lawsuits. What are we expecting from the NFL to do this season? I know we kind of discussed it in the back. In the
off camera.
Yeah. But what do you guys expect to happen now that we've seen him obviously reach an agreement with 20 of the 24? Obviously, there's 66 misuses that apparently were hired or were in the process of being hired.
Contacted.
Yeah. So what are your reactions, your thoughts?
The question is, what do I think the NFL is going to do? Okay. To keep it plain and simple, because the focus to me isn't the 20 that settled. It's the 4 that haven't. And in particular, Ashley Solis, the one that came out, put her name out there, gave descriptive details before any other woman did. These are the ones I'm focusing on because these are the ones that are going to, I think these are going to extend into the season. They're going to bleed into the season when it comes to not settling. They're going for, more of a stricter situation. I think what's going to happen is the NFL, their hand's going to be forced here because you can't have 4 civil lawsuits going right now. Like, imagine, I saw somebody on Twitter say, imagine settling 20 of your lawsuits and still having 4 more to go. Like, that's wild to think about the numbers. And the numbers are everything in all this. And now 4 becomes even bigger of a number than it was before these settles were down. Now that there's still a handful of women that are still in court with this man about what's gone on and what he did and didn't do, and quote unquote, it's funny to me that a man that claims innocence is still settling with people, 20 of them, and then 4 of them are still holding to what they've said in their story. I think the NFL, their hand is going to be tied here. Their hands are going to be tied here, and they're going to have to suspend Deshaun Watson until this stuff is resolved. Because let's be real. I'm going to bring it into this conversation now because it's so relevant. Look what just happened this week with women's rights, right? What just happened with the Supreme Court and what they ruled. Women across the country right now are in absolute uproar, as they should be. And if they see, while this shit's going down and their rights are being taken away in our society, and they see this dude out here playing football, knowing he's got 4 civil lawsuits still on him, and he's probably guilty of all the things, or at least a lot of the things that they're claiming, that's gonna be such a black eye on the NFL. And they're women. I know that it's a majority of men that watch football, but let's not be idiots here. A lot of women love the NFL. A lot of women. You go to Arrowhead, you'll see 25, 30,000 women out there. So let's not make the mistake here that women don't love football and don't follow this sport. And if they see that while shit like this is going on in our society, you better believe there's going to be an uproar. And the NFL does not want that. And Roger Goodell, quite frankly, doesn't want that because he's up for an extension very soon. And I just don't think they can allow him to be on that field and represent their sport and their shield each and every week, knowing what's gone on in their past, no less, with the Ray Rice situation, with the punter from the Giants, what he did to his wife, all these other things that have been surmounted to now this, which is an unprecedented situation. We've never seen anything close to this in the history of sports, let alone the NFL. I think that you're going to see Deshaun Watson miss all of this season, and I'm not ruling out the fact that if it does not get solved by next season, then we couldn't see him sit out games next season as well. I think that's what's going to happen. I think we're going to see Jacoby Brissett starting week 1 for the Browns.
Yeah, and we were also seeing rumors about the Texans trying to, retroactively nix the trade and everything. So, dude, there's so many different things that can happen in this situation. There's got to be some truth to these allegations. There's got to be some things that at least took place a couple of times, against the will or making, moves at someone against their them allowing you to, against their will, against their knowledge, and against them, what their expectations were in these scenarios. There's got to be some foul things that took place here. Deshaun, I can't imagine Deshaun being 100% innocent here.
Right.
There's got to be There's a whole lot of smoke here. Regardless of how much fire you think is here, there's at least a little campfire going on in the corner. You know what I mean? So something took place at least a couple times here. There are a lot of women been fighting and lawyered up and going through all this trouble just to, to me it's too much. This is how I felt about, granted this is a next level thing, but this is kind of how I felt about the Cosby thing. We all know Cosby did some shit. We all know this. He got off on some technicalities, but he should be in prison right now. Because there was just way too many allegations, way too many things going on to attack this old man. That just made no sense for them to do that for no reason. Granted, he's wealthy, I get it. But Deshaun's a wealthy athlete and well-known and has clout and so on. But this is also this shouldn't be glossed over as some just like accusations. I do think there are probably the ones that are just swinging from the nutsack that are trying to be on board and get what they can out of the situation. A lot of them settled probably via payment. There's a lot of settlements that go on, or cases get thrown out. But there's so much volume here to this situation, so many voices, so many different individuals for there not to be some kind of fire here. So I don't know as far as punishment goes. The NFL's got to do something. I mean, at least suspend him for half of the season. I think that's the minimum. I think of what he gets is probably half of the season. You say the full season, which is definitely likely too. And that could be 2 whole seasons out of his career that he has not played back-to-back. That's rough for him. I mean, I don't know, man. This is a wild, very unique situation that's drug out for this long. I would say you can maybe compare it to the Big Ben situation that was similar to this, but that was not nearly that was one person. This is damn near 30 women. This is wild, bro. So, yeah, granted, a lot of them have been thrown out. A lot of the things have been settled. But but there are a handful of ones that are still active and trying to get what they can and try to make their statements known and proven. Look, man, this tarnishes, whether he's guilty or not, this tarnishes his career. This tarnishes his reputation for the rest of his career as an NFL player. As great as he is, that's never going to mask what this has done, his resume. So I think the minimum punishment here is half of the season. And from when I started off with my statement right now, the Texans are talking about, nixing that. So he could end up being a Texan again. Who knows? What happens to his career. He's not in charge of what happens to him. That's the scary thing for Deshaun. He's not in charge of that. He's hoping that everything gets settled. He can continue his career and make this fat money in Cleveland. But that may not even happen. He may end up back in the Texans uniform suffering over there again. Who knows?
And according to Josina Anderson on Thursday, she said, I'm told that there's been recent attempts by the NFL, the NFLPA, and Deshaun Watson's advisors to negotiate a discipline settlement. However, talks involving a potential number of games missed, quote, fell apart, not being on the same page. As of now, process is moving forward per league sources. In other words, Deshaun was like, look, I'll take a 6-game hit.
Yeah.
And the league's like, fuck that. Yeah. You're not missing a portion of the season. This is what I'm telling you guys. I think it's without question, he will not play a single snap this season.
It's highly unlikely to see him to play any football this year. I think there's so much.
And why would
optically for the Shield is rough.
And why would he be trying to find a settlement if he, again, this is my whole I stem back to everything that you said in your initial press conference with the Browns, I'm here to clear my name, saying you're innocent. And now we're sitting here, you're settling. If you're not guilty, I find it funny you're trying to settle. And you know what it is that whole portion of him settling out of the blue was the Browns saying, hey, bro, you say you're clearing your name. Fuck that. You're gonna pay these women so we can get you on the field. We just paid you $230 million guaranteed. Yeah. We gotta have you on the field. We just ruined our relationship with our number 1 overall pick just from 2018. Like, our fan base is in total disarray and in division right now, where some people defend Deshaun, some people can't stand him, some people want Baker Mayfield still, some people don't know how to feel. That's all just within their fan base, let alone the millions of football fans and casual viewers as it is. So this whole situation is the team trying to get him to settle. And so he's going against his own word, and now we have these 4 civil suits that will not be finished by week 1. I don't care what anybody says. These women, some of these have been some of the original lawsuits, so they're not just going away. Yeah. And again, I think the league knows these things, and I think they have to do what's best for the Shield, for their own representation, because there's just and quite frankly, the rest of the league is pissed at their owner, Jimmy Haslam, for giving that type of unprecedented contract, because now quarterbacks that will actually play are going to use that as a leverage. And say, look, this motherfucker didn't play this season before, got traded and got $230 million guaranteed. What am I going to get? Russell Wilson and guys like that, Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow about to get their extensions. Yeah. Lamar Jackson, they're all going to use that. So the rest of the league's like, hey, fuck you, Jimmy Haslam. You just ruined our whole leverage, our schemes of how we can try to give less money out. No, that guaranteed money now is going to be sitting around $190, $200 million automatically with these guys. So there's a lot of anger and frustration around the league. Those other 31 owners are telling Roger Goodell, hit them and hit them hard, man, because they should not get away with a slap on the wrist on this.
I just hope justice is served, and however it's served, I hope it's served correctly and swiftly. I mean, Jesus Christ, can we get out of this situation? Can we just? It's
ridiculous, man.
I know he's wanting to clear his name, but bro, if you're guilty, fuck off, man. Yeah. Like, this is out of your hands. You did these things. You're gonna pay for it one way or another. And I think the bare minimum of his suspension will be half of the season, but I do think it's more likely. I am on your side, Lance. I think it's more likely he doesn't take a snap this season, and I don't know if he should, man. If he's guilty just once of one of these things, he shouldn't. Maybe ever. If I'm being honest, I don't think anyone like that should be granted to play the sport they love.
You brought up something else about the rich billionaire owners and how like people are using that as, well, what happened to them, guys? Listen, I know this is gonna sound fucked up. That's irrelevant right now. You know why? Because anybody that has 2 brain cells to rub together knows that those billionaire owners should have been suspended, maybe even have to give up their team. I'm 100% in agreement with that. Dan Snyder is a piece of shit. Robert Kraft's a piece of shit. These guys did fucked up things.
Creeps.
There's no question in my mind those guys should get worse punishments than Deshaun. That's not the discussion we're having. We're talking about Deshaun Watson. We can discuss Robert Kraft. We can discuss Dan Snyder. We can discuss these slime balls. I'm good with that. But that's not the discussion.
And they
So
have a
that's irrelevant.
they have a different
to
level
this
of power as well.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
another thing. Is another aspect to this. Is these guys are owners.
Yeah.
They
Billionaires.
can just pay millions and millions of dollars to lawyer fees and just push that down the road, down the road, down the road before it even gets to trial. They're dead.
Yeah.
Robert Kraft's been dead for 10 years before they would even get to trial. Yeah. So it's irrelevant to this particular discussion, no matter whether that makes people feel uncomfortable or not.
But even
that's how it is.
But even that, most of them had like 1 or 2 accusations. This is damn near 30 for Deshaun, bro. It's a very bad look.
And numbers in this particular situation does matter. If you're a serial offender,
Not much
that
volume.
matters. So that's what I think is going to happen. And he's going to be suspended for the rest of the season. And I'm not ruling out at least portion of next season because these, Eddie, you went to school for this stuff, man. You know that this stuff can drag out.
Well, and like you just said, with everything that just went down yesterday, with Roe v. Wade being overturned, all these women's rights activists being on
everything's amplified. Everything's amplified.
Peaking right now. This is they got to make the right choice here.
I think the NFLPA will intervene in this suspension. I think that the NFLPA wants to add last year as a suspension if they were to suspend him for a season. Which
is incorrect.
I feel like that's what the NFLPA is going to try and argue. Obviously, they're always going to have their players' backs in certain situations. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, all right. Let's talk. World Cup. World Cup. Obviously, I'm sure everybody's heard the news. Kansas City was selected as a host city, one of the 16 cities to host the World Cup. It was such a great day for me and from my dad. We were almost pretty emotional that day.
Yeah.
It's something we've dreamed of. Something he's dreamed of as a kid, something I've dreamed of as a kid, is to attend a World Cup match, and to have it in our backyard is even more amazing. Yeah. It's something I never thought could or would happen in my lifetime. So when Kansas City was announced, my dad was eating. He was eating in the kitchen table, and I was in the living room just standing up and gasping for air because even though I knew like there was reports that that Kansas City had made the final list. It was just very hard to believe, for the simple fact that only Kansas City was a leaked city to host the World Cup. So it was. I did believe it at the time I read it, but then once the emotion came down and everything, and I was like, okay, like I Googled, I searched, I looked at Twitter, everything, and the only city that was leaked was Kansas City, and it was leaked by ABC Channel 9 News or whatever. So
I think it was a Chris Ketz from Mike Maloney's report, I believe.
Yeah,
Mike Maloney.
So it was very, very, very hard to believe that. So when the announcement came of the West cities first, I saw LA there, Seattle, beautiful Seattle city. That's just amazing. They deserved it. We saw Vancouver get picked, and then once they moved to the central cities, I was like, oh man, here we go. And to hear Kansas City's name as the first name in the central cities, all I heard was my dad go like, yeah! And I'm over here like jumping in the living room, and I'm so excited. Yeah. It was just very, very, very emotional. It was an awesome feeling. I got the chills, everything. Man, I still get the chills just talking about it. So yeah, Kansas City was selected as a host city. What's next is the big question, and obviously, people are like, "Well, it's still 4 years from now." Yes, it is 4 years from now, but 4 years are very, very, very fast. Not that long ago, the 2018 World Cup was going on. France obviously won that, and it was in Russia. And that was already 4 years ago, and it feels like it hasn't been that long ago that the World Cup was held. And now we're going into the World Cup this year. If it hadn't been in Qatar, the World Cup would be where we would be in the middle of the World Cup right now. We would be getting to the later stages in the World Cup, to the knockout rounds, and to the best part of the World Cup. But because it's in Qatar, they moved it to winter because their winters out there are still 100-degree heat. but it is not as hot as it is going to be if they had done it in the summer, which I read somewhere there's like the heat goes up to like 130, 140 out there in the desert. So having soccer players in that kind of heat was just not a good thing, or people in general. So Qatar had to build some kind of AC system in each stadium, which is weird because all the stadiums are outdoors, but they're going to have some kind of AC system pumping cold air into the stadium, making it a little bit cooler.
Can you imagine that power bill?
It's Qatar, so I mean they're using their own fuel,
right, yeah.
So it doesn't really matter. So now what's next? Obviously, Kansas City sent I want to call it like a delegation down to New York, where the World Cup host cities were announced, where FIFA was, I guess you can say, stationed. So Kansas City sent a representative from the Chiefs, from the KC Soccer Commission. Sporting Kansas City sent a representative up there. Obviously, the government sent a Missouri representative up there. So we had all these representatives from Kansas City going out there to see what's next. And the biggest thing that stands out is renovations. That is the major point I guess we'll focus on in the next coming months, because Arrowhead has to go into a massive renovation. People are like, well, what do you mean a massive renovation? We're talking upwards of $50 million in renovations to Arrowhead. Now the biggest question is who's gonna foot the bill. So this is there's still talks as to what needs to be done to Arrowhead. I know the biggest thing that needs to be done to Arrowhead is making the field bigger. That would be one of the biggest things that Arrowhead would have to do. Another major renovation could be probably in the media room. Obviously, being able to host the media from around the world, not just the United States. We're talking the entire globe is going to be in Kansas City when the World Cup starts. So they're going to have to build probably a bigger press room. There's going to have to be upgrades. So expect Chiefs capacity downsize. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but do expect anywhere between 5,000 to 10,000 less seats at Arrowhead for this kind of renovation. Yes, to expand the field, because there's no room to expand it. They would have to cut into the stands to help expand that field, because though it does meet the dimensions that FIFA has for a soccer field, for a World Cup tournament, it is a little bit too small. So it does have to extend a little bit. So, like I said, we're talking of renovations of upwards of $50 million just in Arrowhead. That's just Arrowhead that has to go into renovations.
Yeah.
But then we also have the city as a whole that also has to go into some kinds of renovations. Transportation, they're going to have to upgrade their transportation.
Parking.
Obviously, parking. Yeah. They're going to have to, I'm sure they're going to probably repave all of Arrowhead's parking. They're going to have to do something like that. Obviously, if the Royals are gone by then, they're going to have to either cover that stadium, blow that stadium up, make more parking, do something creative in that area. Obviously, probably you want to build a couple more hotels out there, so a little bit bigger hotels just to be closer to the stadium. Or if you're going to want them to stay in downtown, you're going to have to either extend the streetcar out to Arrowhead.
Oh, wow.
Or do some kind of like transportation designated for the World Cup, like have unlimited amounts of buses just going to Arrowhead every like 15, 20 minutes, shuttles. So it's a massive process that we're dealing. It's not something small. We're talking potentially hosting two countries here as their base. So in World Cup, a country chooses a base in where the World Cup's going to be hosted. Like in Qatar, every country out there already has their own base, their own training ground. So whenever they go out to play, they'll fly out of that base, go play, come back and train until the next game. They'll fly back out and then come back. during the World Cup, expect around 10 to 15,000 fans who travel with that country. So you got to be able to accommodate up to 30,000 more people just for that 1 month. So you have to be able to create a little bit more room somewhere. So it's going to be renovations everywhere around the city. But I think the main focus right now would be renovating Arrowhead as soon as possible. Just for the simple fact that you can't pause the NFL season. You can't move the Chiefs out of Arrowhead during the NFL season.
Right.
So something has to be done within once this NFL season is over. I do expect renovations to start at Arrowhead, just for the simple fact that 4 years is very, very short time to do a massive renovation. And we can talk that this could be a blessing for the Kansas City Chiefs in disguise. Why could it be a blessing? Because obviously they're renovating Arrowhead. People are pushing to keep the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead. Well, this is a big opportunity for Jackson County to help motivate
Step
the
up.
Chiefs and stay in Kansas City, Missouri. But the Chiefs can also use this as leverage and say, is like, either build us a new stadium. I get we got to do renovations. Either do a major new renovation to this stadium, like either build a roof, a retractable roof to this stadium, or a new stadium. If not, we're gonna go across the state line to Kansas City, Kansas. So it could be a blessing, and it could be a not a blessing, a
Curse.
A curse. Yes, thank you.
Yep.
So it all comes down to what's going to happen within the next 4 years. And like I said, the biggest thing is renovating Arrowhead. I know a lot of football fans are probably not going to like it, but trust me, this is not just for football, American football. This is for the community. This is for the
Much
city.
larger scale.
Yeah,
Much
this
larger
is for the
scale.
city. This is if this benefits our city in any way, why are we going to say no to it?
They said upwards of $480 to $500 million in revenue for the city.
ripple-
And that's
the ripple
just 1
effect.
month.
That's just 1 month, exactly.
You're gonna
Ripple effect,
and you're gonna add eyes around the world to Kansas City. So a lot of people
Tourist attraction.
Yeah. So a lot of people are gonna be like, oh, let's go visit the stadium where, let's say, Germany played in the World Cup.
Yeah.
I mean, look what Patrick Mahomes has already done for this the Kansas City metro area for sports and bringing more eyeballs to Kansas City as just being a team that's must-watch
Yes, a
TV.
must-watch.
I mean, can imagine the international eyeballs. It's bigger than anyone really can understand
This
right
is
now.
only gonna help motivate other brands, other companies. Say, Kansas City is a host in 2026.
We're not just flyover country anymore.
Let's build the fucking In-N-Out in Kansas City. You know what I mean? Let's take, I don't know, like a different, like a HEB or something to Kansas City. Let's get those eyes on our brand.
And another thing, Eddie, that you and I talked about a couple days ago that I'm super excited about this for the Chiefs is what you illustrated was perfect and on point about how the Chiefs didn't. This wasn't their decision. Like the city asked them, they came to them and said, "Hey, can we lease out your stadium because you're the only one in the area that can hold and host what we need, the criteria. You guys have it." So the Chiefs didn't have this as their plan. But I do believe, because Clark Hunt is not only so well connected in the soccer realms, but also is a great businessman and plans things out years in advance, they knew years ago that this potential was here, that they could potentially become a World Cup hosting site. So what they did is said, okay, we have an opportunity to get our next stadium because they knew the Royals were in flux. They knew that was an opportunity, so they weren't going to let the Royals be the only team that gets a new stadium downtown, let alone. They knew this was an opportunity for them to get that brush up or get a new stadium, like you said, 80. So Jackson County tax holders or taxpayers can be upset about this at the Chiefs, but that's incorrect because this wasn't their idea to begin with. They're simply hosting what was presented to them, and now the Chiefs can capitalize on said leverage by saying either you guys are going to help us get a new stadium over here in the Kauffman Complex, or we're gone. Or the Truman Complex, the Truman Complex, or we're gone, and we will go to the Kansas side because the other side of this, like you just said about maybe we'll get an In-N-Out out there, maybe we'll bring some franchises out there. Even bigger, think about this. We know the Legends area is where the Chiefs would potentially be going, right? Because of all that land out there and opportunity. The opportunity side is what excites the shit out of me. Think about this. They already have the Hollywood Casino out there. What's to stop another casino from going out there? What's to stop even more opportunities to going out there and building more revenue streams around the new stadium?
What's to stop other like major banks, major companies go out there and build a tower out there?
I think we're leaving out a sport too. What about an NBA team?
Exactly.
What about things like that?
So
The opportunities are endless.
I would lose my shit, guys.
And with the gambling now being legalized in about a week or so in Kansas, the incentives are all
next
there.
Friday.
So I know people, yeah, exactly, next Friday. I know everyone's like, oh, they can't move from Missouri side. Guys, there's a much bigger, I don't care personally for the record. I don't care if they move over here to the Kansas side. I don't care if they stay over there in Missouri. I'm good either way.
Yeah.
All I'm looking for, like you said, Eddie, is the big picture here. And the World Cup, to me, is the single greatest thing that has ever happened to this city.
It's gonna cause
and I'm not being hyperbolic.
The
The
ripple
money
effect.
that's coming, the attention that's coming, the experience, like your father and you, bro, like the story, I almost fucking started weeping when I heard that story. From every single viewpoint and standpoint and perception and perspective, this thing is beautiful for the city, and we need to get on board with it.
Yes, and you can be mad as like, well, $50 million, who's going to foot that bill? Well, obviously it's going to be privately funded. Obviously, companies are going to come in here and say,
That's
"Hey,
not that much
hey,
money.
put our beer in Arrowhead Stadium, and we'll help with $1 million."
Right.
So, or help put our merchandise around the city, and then we'll foot a little bit of the bill.
In other words, that $50 million is very accessible.
Yes.
It's very accessible.
That's not.
And that's just it's just $50 million in the era. Obviously, you got to spend more around the city and stuff like that. But like you said, we're expecting upwards of 400. I believe it's 450 to 500 million dollars in 1 month. In 1 month, we're expecting almost $500 million in revenue. This only helps local entrepreneurs. Yes, it helps the local
the ripple
business
effect, man. It's gonna. This is a atomic bomb that's dropping in our city, man. And the ripple effect is just gonna.
Trust me, if you're
aftershock.
just a American football fan and you know nothing about soccer, you're not excited about the World Cup coming here. You don't think a lot of people are gonna tune into it. Trust me. Lance tried to argue that with me that one day, saying
Still
that
ashamed of that to this day.
the Super Bowl got more views or just as much views as the World Cup.
You can't compete with international sports.
And I showed him the numbers. I was like, just the final alone was over 1 billion people.
Yeah.
It was a total of 3 billion viewers. I believe in 2018 it was a total of just a little bit over 3 billion viewers for the entire tournament.
Let alone the amount of people that are there in those stadiums is
Exactly.
an amazing
All the
number.
merchandise sales, the food and beverage sales, the jersey sales. And here's another thing. I want to add this real quick, Eddie, because this is such a great topic to discuss for this city. 10 years ago, almost to the day, Kansas City, or the Royals, renovated their stadium. Do you know how much money they were given for that renovation to do it? $250 million.
That's what I'm saying. $50 million is chump
and
change,
only
man.
9% of that was from taxpayers.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm looking at all this right now. Right, $17 million of that was received on actual for actual renovations from taxpayers. Right, so you look at that, and that was, you know why the Royals did that? Because what did they get? The All-Star game. Remember that? They're like, oh, dude, we got to up this. We got to get the appearance of this up. That was just an All-Star game, which, by the way, I was there and it was fantastic. Charlie Sheen walked right by me. It was really, really cool. That was $250 million. We're talking about 50 for a much bigger situation than the All-Star game could ever be.
Yep.
So, like, if we're going to be on board with that, if we're going to be on board with this, and like you said, private businesses, owners, people like that are going to help chip in on this. So that $50 million ain't coming from just taxpayers. A small portion of that will be from the taxpayers. But if the taxpayers really want to keep that revenue stream in their city and in their state in Missouri, then they're going to have to fork that money out.
It makes so much sense, too. I mean, like, nothing is going to get bigger than this situation. This is going to be the biggest event in Kansas City history. Even bigger than us winning a Super Bowl. Obviously, we didn't win that in Kansas City, but as far as an event happening in this, there's nothing bigger, nothing more on a different of this magnitude than this event. And what I believe is, I think a new stadium is even. I think it's going to happen regardless of what we think. I think they need it because I do believe within the next 8 to 10 years we're going to host a Super Bowl in this city as well. I think all these things are going to happen. We're already getting the NFL draft, all these things. I mean, all these things are coming our way, bro. Whether you like it or not, these things are happening.
You don't think the NFL's like, holy shit, they're hosting a World Cup tournament?
Yeah. Yeah. You'd think we'd host a Super Bowl before that, but no, this is even bigger.
Like, you know what I mean?
wild,
Like,
man. Yeah.
we have to wait and see what kind of renovations we're looking at into Arrowhead. I know, like, the only one I know for sure is gonna be expanding the field a little bit more. Yes, expect to lose a little bit of more capacity in Arrowhead Stadium, but I mean, if you're wanting the Chiefs to stay in Kansas City, Missouri, it's risk you have to be willing to take. Not just for the Chiefs, but for the city as a whole. This is outside of the Chiefs' control. This has nothing to do with the Chiefs. This involves more of the city than the actual Chiefs.
Right.
So you got to be excited for Kansas City, Missouri. You got to be excited for Kansas City, the metro area as a whole.
Yep.
Of course.
This is a great thing, people. I hope everyone's excited. I wish we could skip 4 years into the future just to get to that because I'm so stoked, man.
Yeah, it's the biggest tournament in the world. By
far. It's not
even close.
Yeah.
Not even close. You guys can say it was like, whoa, the Super Bowl is much better.
And we get that there's not like soccer fans that are getting like that are like super into this. That's fine. You don't have to be a soccer fan to appreciate what this is going to do for our infrastructure, for this city as a whole. And I'm not just talking about Kansas City, Missouri, Kansas City, Kansas too. This is going to benefit everybody in the metropolitan region.
Yes.
Yep.
It's such a great thing, man. Yes, our population is going to go up, but with that comes more job opportunities, more businesses, more options, more everything that we want. Do we want to be New York City where it's 12.5 million people out here? No. But opportunity is what you're looking for, correct? And it's in a world where our inflations continue to rise. You want to be able to have more options for jobs, for careers, for your children, schools, things of that nature, better homes. This is how it happens.
Mm-hmm. And to show you how crazy of the idea of Kansas City being picked as a host city is, I believe 10 of the 11 cities hosting the World Cup in the U.S. are in the top, I believe, the top 15 in population.
Yeah.
And Kansas City's like 33rd.
31st, I think, or 33rd, whatever it is. Yeah. And then the 30s. They're in the 30s. I know that.
Yeah. that is crazy to think that a city that's not as big as the other ones it was competing. We were competing against Denver. We were competing against Nashville, Edmonton.
Yep.
They took a city away from Canada to give to the U.S.
And it wasn't just a city in the U.S. It was a city in the middle of the fucking map with, you said, like a 33rd population. And if you look at the map of the teams or the cities that are host sites, we're the only one right here in the middle. Like, Dallas is the closest, and it's way south.
It's 9 hours from driving.
You literally look at it, and the Godsmack song is cued. I stand alone. Like, you're right there in the middle of the map by yourself. It's... Eddie, this is, I mean, how lucky, we talk about this all the time about, like, how lucky we are to be able to say we watch Michael Jordan and LeBron and Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, all the great soccer players like Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi.
Yep.
We're lucky to watch those guys, and now we get this. Like, we get to be the guys that says, in our prime of our lifetimes, we got to see our city host a fucking World Cup event,
The watch parties that are going to be around that World Cup.
And I'm so glad for you and your dad. I love your dad. He's a great dude. And to see, like, you guys have that moment, those are memories you'll never forget, man. Like, that's everything, man. That's everything why we love sports to begin with. It's why we watch. It's why we're a part of this. It's why you wear your jerseys. It's why we watch every Sundays. Because of the experiences like that, man.
This could be the most pivotal moment in this metro city, Kansas City, Kansas City, Missouri, especially Missouri side. But this could be the most pivotal moment in the history of the city's existence, man.
Think about that.
Like, what this could provide. Not just sports. This is bigger than that. Like we discussed already. Like, the things, the opportunities
Quality
that it can
of
create.
life.
It's a big deal, man, and people don't realize. I know we don't have a lot of non-soccer fans or whatever. You gotta respect and honor. Like, you think the Super Bowl will be a big deal getting here, you guys. Matt and the times 10. Like, this is
that's why I'm
global.
Glad Eddie integrated the Chiefs side of this about what it can benefit for the Chiefs and Chiefs fans, because that's important as well. And I want people to realize how important this is for everybody, even if you're not into soccer.
Yeah,
and
that's all the more pressure for us to succeed at this too. Yeah. This can't be a catastrophe. Right. We can't let this, we can't let the traffic be it's completely overwhelming for because
this can only lead
the traveling folks.
The biggest fear was the airport thing, which, by the way, the terminal will be done by March.
Yeah.
So that's not even gonna be a worry. That's gonna be years away. Yeah. Like where they've had that done for 2 3 years.
That's a game changer.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
our airport's already very easy in getting in and out of.
Yeah, we just started direct flights to Canada too.
Right.
Air Canada is now in Kansas City, so that Kansas City Airport is growing, and obviously it's showing. It's only this city's only going to get bigger. I know a lot of people are not into big cities, but
don't have a choice,
be
man.
proud. Be 16 cities that got selected for this World Cup.
Think about that.
It's 3 countries that were fighting for host city rights.
Mm-hmm.
3 countries.
Yeah.
We're expecting at least to host anywhere between 4 to 6 matches of the World Cup here in Kansas City. So that on its own is so exciting. The emotions that we get to experience 4 to 6 games here in Kansas City. And like I said, countries do not travel alone. They travel with fans, especially in the World Cup. Whichever country is playing here, expect anywhere between 10 to 15,000 more people. And that's not adding the countries that are already basing here in Kansas City. We're gonna be based to at least 2 countries.
Yeah.
For the simple fact that Sporting KC has their thing, and now the KC Current has just built their own training facilities.
Right.
That's enough to host 2 different countries here in Kansas City that you can go and watch them practice.
Yeah, man.
See, and here's the thing. We talk about how lucky our city is to have this and how fortunate we are. But let's give this city some credit because, to your point, Ed, they earned this. Like the Hunt family was one of the forefathers of the MLS. Yep. They built all the infrastructure of American soccer, right?
And football.
Yes, exactly, right. They've helped lead the way in more ways than one to help
Lamar
better
Hunt.
American sports. This has become a hub for MLS soccer, for soccer as a whole, and American soccer. So the
basketball is
representation,
invented in Kansas.
The representation has been there. The representation has been here, so it's not like they said, "Hey, let's just do a favor for Kansas City." No, the city has been working towards this for years and years, even back when Lamar Hunt was alive.
Yep.
Lamar Hunt,
that's what I'm saying. The Hunt family.
He went to a World Cup and fell in love.
Yes,
and that's how he got the idea to help create and elevate American soccer. Obviously, it took him a little bit over 20 years to finally. Help create the MLS.
But it's successful.
He is a founding father of this. The MLS has been around since 94, 95. So it's been around quite some time, and it looks like it's gonna be here for a while.
And I know there's not. Again, we know that the viewing audience of our show and our listening audience is not majority soccer fans, but I tell you guys right now, there's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of casual soccer fans too. We go out here at the Legends when a sporting game's going. You can't find a parking spot anywhere in the Legends. Not by the stadium. I'm talking about in the Legends. You can't find a parking spot. These people they come out in drones. There's a lot of soccer fans, especially this new generation where a lot of their parents are pushing them to play soccer. Yeah. It's a great sport to play. It teaches you a lot of great discipline in life and in sport. Guys, I'm telling you right now, be stoked. And if you're not a soccer fan yet, but you're interested, hit up Eddie, man. He'll help you learn the game, and it's a great game to learn and develop, and I think it's going to continue to do that as we go through these next 4 years of developing the city to get more prepared for what's about to happen.
Also, let me know if you get military discount on those tickets. Cause,
if you get them vet ticks, Ed.
Hey, I'll tell you what. There is going to be no state tax on the World Cup tickets.
Let's go.
So, I mean,
there's another incentive for y'all.
I mean.
So we got anything else for you, Eddie? Is that it? That was a great breakdown, man. That was one of my favorite Eddie hours we've ever had. Be excited, Kansas City, for those of you who are in here. And if you're not in Kansas City, come join us, man, when that World Cup happens, man. You guys will absolutely love what we got going on out here. I'm so stoked and proud to be a part of this, man. But we have one more order of business to get to, guys. What is it called? Hold this L. Each and every week, we finish off each and every episode with a series of L's in the world of sports. Whether they're friendly or not friendly L's in the world of sports, we promise you, whoever is holding those L's in the world of sports from each one of us, they deserve those L's. Mr. Eddie Ortiz, I'll fire it right back to you. Mr. Yo, who's holding the L for you this week?
Oh, man. It's very, 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 very tough. There's not that many sports going on around. It's very, very slow. But I'm going to have to give it a skip. Why am I have to give it a skip? Obviously, he loves calling Russell Westbrook, just like a lot of you do. Russell Westbrook. It's gotten to the point that Russell Westbrook has found that offensive. He called out Skip Bayless yesterday, obviously for saying that the Lakers drafted a player who shoots just as many bricks as Russell Westbrook. So he took that disrespectful. Obviously, his wife took offense to the name. Not because he said Westbrook or whatever, he misses his shots. She took offense to him mocking the name Westbrook.
Yeah.
And she commented on there, not pleased about it. And I can read you the...
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll read you both Russell and his wife's response to Skip. So, first, Russell Westbrook quote tweeted Skip Bayless. This is Skip Bayless' tweet. Lakers acquire a second-round pick. Take Michigan State's Max Christie, who shot only 32% from 3 last season. Perfect. He'll fit right in with LeBron and Westbrook. And then Russell Westbrook responded, yo, watch your mouth. Don't say anything here you wouldn't say to my face. And he's pretty much talking about the whole Westbrook thing. And then his wife responded to that like an hour later or so. And this is what Nina Westbrook responded to Skip Bayless. It's very disheartening that you would choose to continue to shame my family name. Today was a really sad day for my daughters and me. The fact that you can't respect a simple request not to try to tarnish my family name is saddening and such a pile on. It's extremely hurtful. And obviously with what she's saying was a really sad day for her and her daughters, she was referencing to the Roe versus Wade kind of thing being overturned by the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
So what Skip Bayless did was just kind of add salt to the wound. And I get it. I get it. Obviously, players are used to getting, called names and stuff like that. But once they take offense to it, once his wife takes offense to it, it's kind of like, okay, it's time to stop that, because they're actually being hurt. Everybody has emotions, has feelings.
Yep.
So it's time for everybody to stop, saying these kind of things to Russell Westbrook and his family. I think it's time to move on from that name. So for that reason, Skip Bayless, you're going to have to do me a favor and
hold this L. Trevor Twidwell, who's holding L for you this week?
In a slow week of sports, and there's not a lot of L-worthy activities going on, I'm not going to force the envelope and try to find a negative situation somewhere and then try to use that and give that an L. I'm going to go with a W this week. And it's kind of hard to avoid this W because it hits me right in the home feels with two of my local KU guys, championship Jayhawk guys, making it to the big leagues. With Christian Brown and Ochai getting drafted into the NBA the other night. I couldn't be more proud, man. Not only the fact that both of these guys are homegrown guys, went through it, accomplished the ultimate goal that they could. Humble beginnings for both these guys. Worked their way, and then they were champions at the top. A lot of people were doubting them. Granted, we were a favorite in a lot of those games, but a lot of people said that we didn't have the guy. We didn't have a guy, but Ochai, I guess you could say, was the guy, but a lot of times people would take turns. There'd be other guys filling in and being the high scorer. I was so impressed with that team this year, and then to see these two guys, in my mind, the hardest workers on this team, make it to the big leagues. With Brown going to the Cleveland Browns or Cleveland Cavs, and Ochai going to the Cavs, and Brown going to the Nuggets, I believe.
Yeah. 21st overall.
Yeah, man. I mean, I couldn't be more happy for these guys to see what they become in this league. I'm not sure what they're going to develop into. You never really know, especially with basketball. You never really know. Guys can become stars. Yep. And unexpected guys become stars, or overlooked, or should have went earlier. It's always fun revisiting NBA drafts, especially NFL and NBA drafts. Revisiting, where guys were taken, were they were taken way too early, were they overvalued, were they undervalued? I'm very excited to see what these guys, create as far as their destiny within the league. And do they become role players? Do they become stars? Do they become glue guys, a part of a new dynasty in this league? I'm always stoked to see what becomes of my. I mean, we just saw a Jayhawk win a championship. Andrew Wiggins. As much of I'm not a Warriors guy in any way, but there was a special moment for me to see him go out there and be a vital part of a championship run for that Warriors team and be damn near the guy on a couple of those nights in the finals. To see that for Andrew Wiggins, a Jayhawk, is very excited. We've wanted to see Joel Embiid kind of be that guy in the league. He has been, but he's just kind of fallen too short too many times in the postseason. So we've seen so many successful Jayhawks come into this league, and I'm hoping
it's not his fault his team drafted Ben Simmons.
Well, and it's not, but I mean, he just his body fails him a lot too many times. If we're being honest, so seeing Wiggins win that, seeing these two guys get drafted and fulfilling their dreams and their families' dreams and where they've come from, being local, homegrown guys in the city and this metro area, it's a pride thing for me, and I felt a lot of pride seeing those two guys get their dreams, watching their dreams come true that night. So I'm just gonna go ahead and give them a W. I don't have an L this week. I just want to honor them and the fact that these guys from our backyard made it to the big leagues, and I'm very, very excited to see what they become in the NBA.
Well, that's all nice and all, but hold this dub.
Yeah,
that's all real nice.
Fucking W, bro.
And cute. Trevor, I'm really glad Trevor brought the light to the equation. But I always seem to find the good stuff out there, the juicy stuff when it comes to the L's out there in the world. And we don't talk a lot of USFL out here, of course, because it's just we don't do that. That's not a big thing. And I think we've only talked about it one time, if I'm not mistaken. And I believe it was about the guy that I'm about to send on a plank right now. Again. So I don't know if you guys remember. But, I don't know if you guys know, but the USFL right now had the playoffs going on, and one of the teams that are not in the playoffs is the Pittsburgh Maulers. That's because the Pittsburgh Maulers went 1-7 this season. And I don't know if you guys remember the big controversy that came out earlier this season with their head coach, one Kirby Wilson, when he decided to do this. And I'm just going to play it for you so you guys can reminisce on this.
John Peters, personnel director. What's up, man?
Well, he crossed the line. So we had to deal with it.
This is very difficult for me as a head coach, my first time. But we have a business. Okay, this is business and you're a businessman. We all are. Because that's the nature of the beast right now. But when I first talked to you guys on March 22nd, I had a handbook. I covered some items that were very important to me.
Line 46 addresses that. Any disrespect of football or members, staff, USFL, hotel, etc. would not be tolerated.
And it's been brought to my attention that has occurred with you. So unfortunately, hear me out, unfortunately, cost of doing business, I'm going to have to let you go. Okay?
I didn't think I did anything or said anything disrespectful. I can tell you what happened exactly.
It's not important right now.
Right.
It's not important.
I don't know.
It's already happened.
Right.
It's already happened.
I didn't say anything disrespectful. He said, is that going to be a problem? I said, yes. That's it. And I walked away. I didn't think that was disrespectful. Me saying yes, I don't eat chicken salad. And I was like, is there another option? Walked in with pizza, and I was like, can I get a slice of pizza? He said, no. I was like, he said, is that going to be a problem? I said, yes. That's all I said. I didn't say no cuss word, nothing. That's all I said. I promise you, no disrespectful on my dad's life. I promise you I didn't say nothing disrespectful besides yes.
And I appreciate you sharing that, but the matters, it's done. It's done. And I appreciate you sharing that. But good luck.
Someone's feelings, hurt feelings, are a distant second to the greater good of the team. And we've moved on and turned that page, and I'm happy we did it.
I can't mope about something. Just go home and work. I ain't no dumb dude, so I'll figure it out.
Yep. Well, that was Davion Smith, the player that Mr. Kirby Wilson decided to cut because it's for the greater good, as we all know. Because pizza is very, you gotta avoid that completely, so you can go and have a 1-7 record. Oh, and not only did Kirby Wilson lead his Pittsburgh Maulers to a 1-7 record, they lost those 7 games by a combined 104 points, which was 15 points per game, and their only win was by 1 point against the Houston Gamblers, who were 3-6. So I'm really glad that Kirby Wilson took the time this season to let guys know what they can and can't eat and then cut them for that because it's the greater good and that's the stuff you're focused on, and then you lead your team to the worst record in the USFL. So I just wanted to congratulate Kirby Wilson with that because, again, he's a man of integrity, and more power to you, brother, because you just went 1-7. So with that, you're getting another L today. Do me a solid and hold this L. 1-8.
Jesus, man. That's a winner.
One hell of a winner.
It's a winner right there.
I'll take that. It was a nice payday.
So this was good, man. We had a good time. I hope you guys all have a good time. We like to always reiterate it. If you could hit us up on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. You guys know what we do here. You know what we're all about, man. We're gearing up. We're ramping up for the busy season. You guys know that we like to give you guys the best quality, the best guests. We love to give you guys our honest feedback and opinions, and we appreciate all the support we've had to this point. We did eclipse, if anything, I'm giving a W to us here at the Spoken Podcast, because we did eclipse 2,000 members on our Spoken Facebook group, which is where this all began back in December of 2010. To get us to 2,000, man, it's been nothing short of awesome. We've had so many new people on the platform that we have now been able to keep up. I mean, we check the growth all the time, and the numbers just go up exponentially, and it's so wild that that's happening because of the fact that this is the slow time of the year. So I couldn't be more excited about what's to happen, man, when we start getting into the fall season, because we all know that's our bread and butter here, man. And I'm stoked to get some football takes and things of that nature. So I appreciate everybody out there that's spreading the word for us, that's been supporting us, and all for the newcomers, man. I appreciate all you guys for tagging along. We're going to keep this bad boy rolling, and I appreciate everything that these two guys do in making the show what it is. I'm just the guy that talks shit on here, tries to make sense as much as possible, and I hope you guys enjoy it along the way. But for Trevor Twidwell, for Eddie Ortiz, for the great Clay Wendler that puts this bad boy together for us, that builds this Frankenstein into what it is, I am Lance Twidwell. Episode 172 of the Spoken Podcast is done, finished, and finito. And until we're back here next week for 173, we out of this bitch.